The sound to which our ears respond might be classified as either music or noise.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to episode 23 of Low Limit Football on Low Limit Poker Radio. I had a brain fart there. I'm your host, Joe Usello. With me tonight, as always, my co-host, Ben the Machine. Ben, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, Joe. Yourself?
Good. Just all of a sudden, like midstream, started to change the intro and just lost my mind. So
it's okay, it happens.
But we've had a good week of football. We certainly had a good weekend of football, and you and I are working off of a short week. But the big show that we've been promising for a couple of weeks is here. We're going to do our Italy and England preview, which, like I said, could take a couple hours. But really, the thing that I'm excited to play for everyone tonight is the interview I did yesterday. I'm really lucky to get in contact with Alfonso Duro, who works for BeIN Sport. Works for Univision Deportes as well. He's a reporter over in Spain. He was actually at El Classico a week ago. Ben said that the stadium was phenomenal. It was electric, great game. But the great thing with Alfonso, as you'll hear in the interview, is he's got a lot of insight, and he's got some opinion as to what's going on in Spain and everything. So I'm very excited. Since recording the interview, I've already listened to it 3 times. I've played it for my brother. It just sounds great. The only thing I want to mention to everybody is about 2.5 minutes in, there's a 10-second spot of dead air that he and I started to lose Skype contact, Ben. So just wanted to mention that. But before I kick off that interview, Ben, how are things going over in England?
Yeah, it's going well over here. I'm enjoying the football. It's been a bit of a hectic week. I met my girlfriend's parents for the first time this week as well, so I've had a lot going on. And just in case anyone wonders why in the interview I wasn't about, this Sunday in England was actually Mother's Day, and as much as I really did want to be a part of the interview with Joe, but I'm not sure my mum would quite understand. So Joe did the job brilliantly, and he's got the interview and he's put it on for you all. So thank you, Joe. And we work together in this show, and we're trying to make it as good as we can for the listeners. So.
I did mention that you were busy with Mother's Day, and I didn't realize how big of a deal Mother's Day was in England. But seeing some of the people in England that I follow on Twitter, even people that are here who are originally from there, a lot of people posting about it and posting things and pictures and everything. So it is a big deal. I was when you first said to me that it was Mother's Day this weekend. In the United States, Mother's Day is like the second or third Sunday in May, and all of a sudden I'm like, what do you mean it's Mother's Day? It's not even April yet, So we share different Mother's Days, just like we share different daylight savings days, Ben.
That's true. I mean, so we're back to 5 hours again now, and it's a bit of a later show for me tonight, but I wanted a bit of extra preparation so we can make it good quality for the viewers.
Definitely. So
listeners, sorry.
Viewers, it's all right. It all works. So, all right. So let's get into it. Let me fire up the Alfonso Duro interview, and the interview is about 35 minutes long. So, everyone, hope you enjoy it. And again, if you do have questions, you can tweet at me, JP Usello. You can tweet at Ben, which is the Machine 1984, or our show's Twitter page, which is Low Limit Football, and we can get the questions over to Alfonso, and hopefully he'll respond to them. So. Without further ado, the Alfonso Duro interview. Joining us now on Low Limit Football is Alfonso Duro. Alfonso works for Yahoo Deportes, Univision, and BeIN Sport. Alfonso's joining us from Spain. How are you today?
What's up, Joe? How's it going? Pretty good over here in Spain. Nice day. It's been cold the last few days, but today's a nice and sunny day, so ready to enjoy it.
Excellent. And, coming off of we'll jump right into it. Coming off this past weekend's action in Spain, wanted to go back 2 weeks ago to El Classico. I wanted to get your thoughts on the match itself, kind of what happened in it, and then we'll dig into the red card and the penalty kicks and all that stuff. But tell me your first impressions of El Clasico.
Well, I mean, I feel the Classico was a great match. I mean, I think anybody who is not a fan of any of the two teams enjoyed the 90 minutes of soccer. It was intense. It was well fought. There was a bit of everything, like you mentioned, the red card, penalty kicks, nice back and forth on the scoreboard. So I think it pretty much kept everyone on their toes for the 90 minutes. I think for fans of Barcelona, obviously, great outcome. I think it's probably the one Clásico in the last few years where they came into the game feeling not as in control as in the last 5-6 years. For Real Madrid fans, I mean, it must have been devastating. Real Madrid really had the chance in the first half, even though Iniesta scored first. I think Real Madrid really had the chance to turn things around. They went to, they got up 2-1, but really, if Benzema would have been just a little bit more on point, it could have been an easy 4-5-1 at that point. And then right before the halftime call, Messi scores that awesome shot. So puts things 2-2. I think that started to sort of decide what was going to happen. I think Real Madrid went into the game thinking that, 4 points ahead of Barcelona, even with defeat, they were still 1 point ahead, and they didn't seem to want it as much as Barcelona did. I mean, Martino had said it the day before on a press conference. It was really their last chance to cling on to La Liga, and man, have they done that? Right now they're battling up there with Atletico Madrid, and it seems like Real Madrid is really just an afterthought when literally 8 days ago they were the best boys team to take it all. So, like I said, a very good match for the soccer viewer. It just sucks for Real Madrid's fans who thought they could have really made a dent in what could have been the 33rd trophy. I mean, there's still a chance, of course, 7 more games to go, but they could have really made that sort of made that final push, keep Barcelona away for 7 points, and still maintain the fight with Atletico Madrid, and that's.
Alfonso, do I still have you?
Oh yeah, there you go.
There we
I
go.
kind of lost you there for a second.
Yeah. So I wanted to dig in a little deeper. Why don't we stay on La Liga real quick before we hit the red cards? Obviously, the matches from yesterday: Real Madrid 5-0 over Vallecano, Barca with a 1-0 win over Espanyol, and Atletico with a 2-1 win over Athletic Bilbao. What I noticed is that Barca, for me, I'll start with Barcelona because they've taken advantage of the situation. They made a statement the week before against Osasuna, winning 7-0. They come out, they beat Real Madrid 4-3. And this Espanyol match, to me, tended to look like a little bit of a hangover where they weren't flowing quite as well. And Espanyol, to their credit, also played defense very well in the match. Is Barcelona mentally tough enough to take advantage of what they've created for themselves and basically win out these last 7 matches and take La Liga?
Yeah, I think you actually hit the nail on the head. I think Barcelona is mentally strong enough to actually win the 7 matches and take La Liga. I don't think emotionally or physically ready to do so. Which side of those, of that paradigm will win? I really don't know. I think what we saw yesterday in the game against Espanyol is really the Barcelona that we've been seeing all year. I mean, Barcelona that obviously has great players, and obviously when they want to play together, I mean, they are, if not the best team in the world, one of the best teams in the world. But they didn't want it. I mean, keep in mind, these guys have won everything in the last 5 years. There's been all these struggles with Sandro Rosell, the former president, stepping down, the problems with Neymar and his tax evasion case, or his family's tax evasion case and his transfer, the problems with Messi now asking, at the beginning of the year, Messi also having a tax evasion problem for which he had to pay 30 million euros to the IRS in Spain, and then Messi sort of, or Messi's, I guess, entourage, we could call it, coming out and saying, he needs to be the best player, the best paid player in the team and not Neymar. There's been a lot of turmoil around the team, and I think that's really affected them. That put together with the fact that Puyol has been out for most of the season and has already said he'll leave the team at the end of the year. Valdez also having mentioned that he would leave the team at the end of the year. Dani Alves sort of doing his own thing the whole season, and Xavi sort of starting to lose some gas and not be the defining player that he used to be week in and week out. I mean, Xavi is now the player that can come to a Classico and really have a great match and be the deciding factor, but not week in and week out like as he had been, for the last 5 years. So I think what we saw against Espanyol is really the image that at least I have of Barcelona this whole year. And I think what they've done, in the last week, like you mentioned with the game against Osasuna, which was more of a statement than anything else, and obviously the game in El Clasico, where, again, as I said before, I think if Real Madrid had just, I don't want to call it luck, but if Real Madrid had just wanted it, let's just put it that way, a bit more, they could have easily taken the Clasico. I think Barcelona has really been handed or dealt a great hand right now. And I mean, you mentioned that they have 7 games. I think mentally they are ready for them. I mean, they're ready to win because they're a team that knows how to compete and how to win. Physically, that's another story. And I mean, the good news is they're facing Betis and Granada in between their matchups against Atletico Madrid in the Champions League. So those are on paper easy games for them. Where they if they had to face Villarreal or Valencia, I think things would have been a bit different. But I think right now they're nicely poised to take the 7 games. I really don't see them losing any points. Maybe till the last game of the season against Atletico, and that again it's a Camp Nou, so it should be it should be theirs to take it. And I mean, obviously who's to know what position the 3 teams will be in 7 weeks from now or 5 weeks from now. But I think Barcelona has, without doing much to earn it, has been put in a great spot to actually take La Liga this season.
You hit on something quick. That last match is going to be at Camp Nou. I think I wrote down the date here somewhere. It's May 18th. Do you think Atletico and or Barca are able to take something away from their matchups in the Champions League now coming up? Because they're going to play each other twice moving into that. Do they take something away from this that they can use in that match? Because for me, that match that they play at the end of the season is for La Liga. I really feel like that. I feel like all 3 teams can win their 7 matches moving into that final match, and then that match is going to be for La Liga. So do either of them take anything away where it helps them or gives them an advantage moving into that final match?
I don't know. Honestly, I mean, I think these 2 teams know each other better than any other 2 teams in the league. I mean, we saw it in the Supercopa at the beginning of the season. 2 ties only because of that goal that Neymar scored at Calderón that Barcelona was able to win the Supercopa. And then in La Liga they tied again 0-0 at Calderón. I mean, I would put all my money on another tie in that last match. So I don't know. I don't know if they'll take something away from this matchup in the Champions League. I think on a head-to-head battle, Atletico Madrid can do more damage to Barcelona than the other way around. Obviously, with the caveat that if Messi has one of his games, like he did against Manchester City, like he did in El Clasico, that all goes down the drain. And that's the beauty of having a player like Messi. That's the beauty also of having a player like Diego Costa. And we saw it yesterday in the game against Athletic Bilbao, right? I mean, the team didn't do much. The team didn't create much soccer. Let's just put it that way. But with Diego Costa up front, you can really take advantage of that and have the leisure of playing 90 minutes of not great soccer and then still win a tough match against Athletic Bilbao. What I do think will be defining, though, is because they face each other in Champions League, the game in between, so next weekend's game, Atletico Madrid has to play against Villarreal, and Villarreal just won this week. They had lost 5 weeks in a row, and this is a very, very good team, coached by Marcelino, who's a great coach, and they have a lot to show, a lot to fight for, and they want to be in Europa League next year. So I think they will take advantage. I think Cholo, as much as he talks about going game by game and not really thinking, farther than that, obviously Champions League, everybody wants to go through it. And I think Cholo Simeone knows that Atletico has a real chance against Barcelona. So next weekend against Villarreal, he will probably make a lot of changes and play with most of his backups. And I think Villarreal can take advantage of that. If Villarreal does get a win there, that puts against Barcelona, Barcelona in a very good position. And keep in mind that Barcelona and Real Madrid are the only two teams that can probably rotate as much as they want to and still be as competitive as they are with their first team. So I don't think Atletico will actually win all 7 games. I think they are the ones who have the best chance or the better chance, to put it some way, to actually lose some points before that final game in La Liga. And having said that, at Camp Nou, I think Atletico can definitely pull a tie. I think a victory will be kind of tough, but hey, they did it against Real Madrid in Santiago Bernabeu, so why not? But I don't know if La Liga will be decided in that last match, because again, I think Atletico Madrid will actually lose some points before then, and if Barcelona can keep the record straight, it will be taken.
Last question on La Liga before we move on to the red cards and the penalty kicks. Is Real Madrid out?
Look, Marca.com just has this very nice application where they can let you sort of play with the results of the next 7 games. Even if Real Madrid wins all 7 games, Barcelona would have to at least tie 2 games, and Atletico Madrid would have to at least tie 2 and lose another one. It's really tough. Technically, yes, Real Madrid is only 2 points below Atletico Madrid and Barcelona, but Real Madrid also does not have the advantage of having won the goal average against any of these 2 teams. So that, for all intents and purposes, it makes them be 3 points away. 3 points away, like I said, it's a defeat. And just looking at Barcelona's calendar, I don't see them losing any single match. The game in Villarreal, perhaps it's a tie. The game against Athletic Bilbao in Barcelona, it could be a tie, but then again, Athletic Bilbao, was much better, I guess, positioned to take some points from Camp Nou a few months ago than they are right now. And the rest, Barcelona is facing Elche, Getafe, Granada, Betis, very, very, lower table teams that are not competing very well. Getafe hasn't won in over 2 months. Betis, yes, they won yesterday, and they're trying to get out of the bottom of the table, but they're still, a very soft team. And Granada, they lost at Calderon midweek, and I doubt that they can do anything against Barcelona. So, I think, like I said, it's for Barcelona to take. I think Real Madrid, even making their best effort, Real Madrid doesn't have a tough calendar either, but they do face Real Sociedad next week in Anoeta, and that's always a tough match for them. Real Madrid tied there last year. Barcelona lost there this year. So if they can get past that, I think Real Madrid could take the next 6 games, even though they face Valencia at home. For example, which would also be a tough match. It's going to be really, really hard for Barcelona, those 4 points that they need to lose in order for Real Madrid to take it. So I think, like I said, I think Atletico Madrid will lose some points. I don't think Barcelona will lose any. And I think even if Real Madrid is to win everything, it still won't be enough to take it.
Yeah, I think for me, they're Barcelona away and reverse the roles. Yeah, so. That's what
I think that's one thing. I think that's one thing that we should hold against Ancelotti. Like I said, I think Real Madrid went into the game. If you saw, I was lucky enough to be at the stadium. If you saw the way Real Madrid went into the game against Barcelona, and you saw the way Real Madrid went against Atletico Madrid I mean, it was a whole world apart. It was ridiculous against Atletico Madrid, because Atletico Madrid had won the Copa del Rey the year before in the final, because Atletico Madrid had also beat them in Santiago Bernabeu during the Liga match. Real Madrid wanted that game, and Real Madrid went in with everything. They won 3-0. Granted, there was 2 goals of rebounds, great. But still, Real Madrid really, really played that game like they wanted it. Against Barcelona, it was a complete opposite. It was, like I said before, I mean, they're 4 points ahead, and they know that, or they knew that even a loss would still see them above Barcelona for 1 point, by 1 point. And it just seemed like they were just trying to, maintain control as much as possible and not get aggravated, and even try to pull off a tie if possible. And like I said, I think that should be held against Ancelotti. I mean, he really had the choice to get the team in there and really make a statement, get ahead of Barcelona for 7 points. And he lost it, and obviously nobody could have known that Real Madrid was also going to lose against Sevilla, 3 days later. But those things happen. I mean, those are the games where you really don't know what could happen. And Sevilla has been doing great. They have been winning the last 5 games, and they made it past Betis in the Europa League, which was a tremendously tough matchup, because it was the city rivalry, and they had lost the first game 2-0, and they were able to come back, win 2-0, and then win in the penalty kicks. So Sevilla, I think Ancelotti should have definitely thought about that and really gone against Barcelona, knowing full well that players obviously want to or are able to be a lot more motivated against Barcelona than against any other team. He should have really played with that and take it and use that to his advantage, and he didn't. I think his comments in the locker, it was more about, let's just be calm, nothing happens if we lose, don't worry about it, and that's just not the right message. And that's something, I'm no Jose Mourinho fan in any way, but that's something that Mourinho knew how to do very, very well. In the last year and a half that he was at Real Madrid, he was able to motivate his team in the big games like no other coach has done in Real Madrid since probably Fabio Capello in '96, not even in his second year in the team. And Ancelotti has, he hasn't been able to do that. And he hasn't been able to do that in La Liga. He hasn't been able to do that in the one tough match that he had in Champions League against Juventus in Turin. So, I think that's something to be debated inside the club, and to really figure out if, Ancelotti is the right man for the job, if he can make, the team win these important matches.
You actually open up a whole new can of worms, because we could discuss who Ancelotti's replacement would be, and there's a lot we could talk about there. So maybe we'll save that for another day. But let's get into the actual reason you and I started speaking to each other on Twitter was the penalty kicks in El Clasico, the red card. First, let's go into the penalty kicks. Obviously, there were 3 penalties. There was, and now I'm just trying to remember them all off the top of my head, because I know the important one is the Neymar one, which is really the one we talked about the most. But the Xabi Alonso penalty on Iniesta at the end, that one, I don't think there was much debate on that one. I think that one was pretty clear, easy. We can kind of wipe that one out. And I just can't remember the Barca penalty.
The first one was Dani Alves tripping Ronaldo outside of the box.
Thank you. That was the one.
3 inches outside of the box, and a penalty being called. And I honestly, the more I thought about it, I think that was the defining penalty kick, because, I mean, obviously I'm no mind reader here, and it's easy to sort of talk about this, once everything's happened, but I really, just knowing and having watched many Spanish soccer referees throughout the years, I really seriously doubt if Undiano Mayenko hadn't called that first penalty kick, that 3-4 minutes later he would have called the other penalty kick and actually shown the red card to Sergio Ramos. It's sort of that, the law of compensation, they call it in Spanish, I think.
Yes.
And it just had to happen, and it's unfortunate for Real Madrid fans and for Real Madrid players that Sergio Ramos' penalty kick, and we can discuss whether it was or not, and what we both feel, was the right thing to do in that situation. But I think it was unfortunate that that penalty kick, if called, had to be a red card because of the law that sort of rules those kind of situations. Because I think that's where Ondiana Mayenko sort of he wanted to compensate the first penalty kick, but he probably didn't want to compensate so much that he had to show him a red card. But if he did call that penalty kick, he had to show the red card. So it was a very tough situation. It takes seconds to decide. And, I honestly, I don't buy the whole conspiracy theory thing against Real Madrid, because I honestly think, if you're going to conspire against Real Madrid, you don't give them a penalty kick when the foul happened outside of the box. And B, if you really want to sort of promote Barcelona winning the championship and you want to help Barcelona, you don't do it in El Clasico. You do it against Valladolid when they lost, or against Real Sociedad when they lost. You give them a penalty kick there, make them win those games, and not actually try to do your best in the Clasico when all eyes are from the entire world are actually looking at the game. So I really think that first penalty kick was the defining moment. Although obviously, that second one with the red card to Ramos was eventually what actually decided the game. Because even with a 3-3, there was still 20 minutes to go. I think Ancelotti could have also played it much better. He could have, instead of dropping back so much, he could have tried to bite a bit more in the middle, because everybody knows that once Barcelona has full possession of the ball, I mean, it's just a question of time until they score again. And even if they can score, if they start playing inside your box, then the chances of committing a penalty kick against the likes of Iniesta, of Neymar, or Messi, when they're so quick on their feet, they just grow exponentially, and that's exactly what happened. So again, I think we could peg some of this on the referee, but to point my finger at Ancelotti again and sort of the decisions that he's made as of late.
Okay. I agree. I think the first call does affect the second call. I think that naturally happens. I didn't find as much fault with the referee in the first call, just because the speed of the game, I think, is beyond these guys at this point. And this led us to something else you and I had talked about quickly on Twitter. The speed of the game is beyond one referee standing there to make an instant decision when the margin at that speed is 3 to 6 inches. Very, very difficult. I mean, we talk about goal line technology. We talk about putting a referee on the back line to keep an eye on that, and it's very, very difficult to do something like that. So I don't fault him so much for the first penalty in terms of making a mistake, because it happens so quickly and the line is so close. The second penalty, though, I do agree with you. A little bit more of a makeup call. There was contact, but I think you're right. I think there is a little bit more of a makeup call. And when it happens, like you said, the FIFA rule, he has to apply it. Neymar is past Sergio Ramos, and I think he's got enough control where he's not on Diego Lopez yet, where he can at least manage a scoring opportunity. So because of that, he has to pull the red card. He has to throw Ramos out. Changes the complexity of the game. And again, we talked about it. My co-host and I talked about it last week. When you give Barcelona, the worst thing you can do is give Barcelona space. Mm-hmm. When you do that, Barcelona will kill you. And it's just a matter of time before they pick you out. And like you said, you let them play in the box. Now the chances for a penalty, chances for a scoring chance. Messi's so quick with the ball that he tends to dance around people and create these situations. And now you've taken a central defender of all people. You've taken a central defender out of the match. And it's catastrophic for any team. I don't care what team it is. I think he did it to Bayern Munich. It would be the same result, at that point. So let's talk about, first of all, I think you and I agree that I think the red card rule is a little harsh. It's a little much. It tends to be a double jeopardy kind of thing, where you've already awarded them or rewarded them the penalty kick for the scoring opportunity, which is not a 50-50 possibility. I mean, it's really more 70-30, 80-20, depending on who's taking the kick. So I just think the red card becomes a little harsh there. And I wanted your thoughts on the FIFA rule and the red card itself, and is it something that they should do away with?
Yeah, well, it's funny because so not too long ago they were debating here in Spain whether they called it the triple punishment was harsh enough or not. Most people seem to agree that it was, because it's not only that Sergio Ramos. So, you get the penalty kick, which, like you said, 70-30. I would even say with Messi and Ronaldo, it's probably a 99-1.
Mm-hmm.
But that's already punished. That's already a punishment for a play where you don't know if the player is going to score or not. I mean, Ronaldo in the first chance, there was no saying whether he was going to score or not. Neymar in the second chance, you can't say if he was going to score or not, and same for Iniesta on the third penalty kick. So you get the penalty kick, or Barcelona gets a penalty kick in this case. B, Sergio Ramos sees a red card, but C, Sergio Ramos also missed the next game against Sevilla, and we all know how that ended up. So to start in the beginning, I think the triple punishment is way too much. I think that makes absolutely no sense unless there is a surefire aggression by the player. Then don't give him one game. Give him 5 games. I don't care. But decide it when and if that happens. Just the fact that a player trips like Ronaldo, like Sergio Ramos tripped Neymar, to me shouldn't define that, A, that game, and B, the second game or the next game, because I think that's way too much. But even if we don't even think about the next game being missed by Sergio Ramos, like we were discussing on Twitter, I think Ramos in this case doesn't really want to try and trip Neymar. Doesn't even want to get on the way of Neymar. I think I know your opinion is different, but my opinion is Ramos is actually trying to stay away from the play. He's trying to get away as much as possible. I think Neymar actually lost control of the ball, and Diego Lopez was already on it. And Neymar, in a very smart way, I must say, leaves his leg back, trying to find as much contact as possible, or a contact, if at all possible. And when he does, he just jumps on the ground and starts rolling around. To me, that's very strict. It's a very strict call on the penalty kick itself. But like you said, we can't blame a referee for missing something when these guys are sprinting, from half field. I don't even know where Oriana Mayenko was positioned in this play, and Ramos is sort of covering the linesman with his body. So it's hard to tell. So granted, the penalty kick should have been awarded, but then the red card when Ramos is clearly trying to get away from the ball. It's way too tough, and I think FIFA should definitely look into that, because, like you said, I mean, this affects Real Madrid in this game, but it could affect Bayern Munich in the final of the Champions League, and it could affect the final of the World Cup. I mean, if in the final of the World Cup Zidane goes crazy and headbutts Materazzi, by all means, give him a red card and don't let him play ever again, or do whatever you want, because the guy was aggressive and did something that he shouldn't have done. But one of these, tricky calls that, the fact that they can decide such an important tournament like La Liga or like the World Cup, it seems way too much to me. And then the other side is that there's no real way to make this objective. I mean, 3 days later in Real Madrid Sevilla, in the first half, Ronaldo had a chance that ended up on the goalpost, and Beto completely ran him over, and it's the same thing. It's Beto, the Sevilla's goalkeeper, was trying to go for the ball as much as Ramos was probably trying to go for the ball in Neymar's action. Ronaldo chips it over Beto, but Beto can, he's not a magician, he's not Superman, he just can't stop himself, and he runs Ronaldo over. The fact is, the ball hits the post and ends up completely dead on the line, on the goal line. Had Beto not run Ronaldo over, Ronaldo could have scored the goal. So should that have been a penalty kick and a red card? I mean, who is to tell? I honestly, I think the rule is not clear enough, and if it's clear enough, referees don't interpret it the same way, and it's very unfair. And if on top of that you add the fact that yes, a penalty kick and a red card can be a decisive factor in a game such as El Classico, or in a game like Real Madrid Sevilla, where actually defines La Liga, I think FIFA really needs to, FIFA and UEFA and all the other governing bodies need to look into it and figure out a way that it's more objective and fair to everybody playing the game.
Is it time for instant replay?
Is it?
Is it time for instant replays?
Honestly, I mean, if I had to vote, yeah, why not? You know, you lose more time with the bickering and the fighting after each and every play, both before the penalty kick is taken and after the penalty kick is taken. That you have three guys up top with an instant replay, and you make the call. I mean, when I go to the press box at the stadium, we have a monitor and we have instant replay, and even before everything's calmed down and the referee has decided to throw or take out a yellow card or a red card to a player and write it down and take a penalty kick or a free kick or whatever, I on the press box already know if 95% of the time. Of course, there's some that years and years later we're still going to look at them and we're still not going to know if the right angle of the camera is telling us a different story than it actually was. But 95% of the time, the decision could be made in seconds that are not even being taken away from the play, that are just being taken away from all this bickering that is caused after every single difficult situation. So, like I said, if I had to vote, yes. I mean, I understand the people in charge, namely Joseph Blatter. They believe that this is sort of the beauty of the game, and soccer is not like basketball or like American football, where everything needs to be perfect and coordinated for it to be, watched and enjoyed by fans. I don't agree. I mean, I think the idea that soccer today is the same as it was 100 years ago is completely false, and the same way things have evolved in terms of uniforms, in terms of cleats, in terms of trainings, et cetera, why shouldn't they evolve also in the rule book? And in this one instance where it would be key, and technology today allows us to pass judgment on these sort of calls within seconds, and it wouldn't deter the pace of the game.
Right, I agree, and I, like you and I have talked about before, it's the timing of the penalty. It's I think if they should use it or implement it, it's not to determine if a call was a penalty, but more to determine if a penalty call was made and it was not a penalty.
Yeah.
And I think in the two examples we look at in El Classico, I think it probably would have reversed both calls.
Yeah, no, of course it would have, and and they could find creative ways to do it. I mean, look at tennis. Tennis has has instant replay now, and the player gets to you get 3 chances to do it within the, I don't know if it's a set or within the whole match, and you play your options however you want, and if you and just like in the NFL, if you have to lose a timeout, you have to lose a timeout. Why not allow 4 substitutions and you get 1 chance to redo a call, and if you don't if you end up not being right when you ask for it, take 1 substitution off, and the 30 seconds that you're going to allow of injury time for that extra substitution, you're making it up for a clearer and more, more precise reffing. I mean, I think that the timing aspect of it is ridiculous. Honestly, nobody's going to waste time with instant replay. That it's in the word, it's instant, and actually technology allows you to do it that way nowadays. And if they want to find a way to actually sort of promote the use of it or deter the use of it, in different types, in different parts of the game, then by all means, if you want to make all substitutions and, in the last minute you get one of these calls and you don't have anything else to bargain for, then, hey, it's the rule, you lost your chance. If not, maybe people will save that one extra sub till the end to actually bargain for an instant replay. I mean, who knows? I'm just thinking out loud, but there's got to be a way to do this in a way that makes sense for everybody, and that just makes the reffing of these games easier for the ref and more fair for the teams too.
I agree. Thank you. I know we're pressed for time here, so Alfonso, thank you very much for joining us on Low Limit Football. We really appreciate it. We'd love to have you back, maybe a little closer to the World Cup, where we could, talk about maybe Spain's chances. Because obviously, I know you're certainly extremely knowledgeable about what's going on over there, and being there actually helps a little bit. So, and I'm sorry my co-host couldn't be here this morning. It's Mother's Day in England, and it's a very, very big deal there. So. But I know he really wishes he covers Spain for us, and I know he really wishes he was a part of this today. So I know he'd love to have you back, where he'd get a few minutes to chat with you. So
Cool. Whenever you guys want, I'm more than happy to help out. It's great talking to you.
Awesome. Again, Alfonso Duro, Univision Sports, BeIN Sports. Thank you again for joining us on Low Limit Football.
Thank you so much. Take care.
I'll just quickly run back through the results and quickly. Obviously, we did the show Wednesday, so I'll preview all the results from Thursday onwards. We're in the Spanish La Liga. Home Sociedad beating Real Valladolid 1-0. Almeria drawing 2-2 with Valencia. Levante losing. We're going to the Saturday's games. Espanyol losing 1-0 at home to Barcelona. So a Lionel Messi penalty in the 77th minute. Celta Vigo beating Sevilla 1-0 at home. Atletico Bilbao losing 2-1 at home to Atletico Madrid. Costa and Coco with the goals. Real Madrid winning 5-0 at home to Rayo Vallecano. Ronaldo with 1, Carvajal with 1, Morata with 1, and Bale with a brace. And then Sunday's games. Osasuna drawing 1-1 with Real Sociedad. Villarreal drawing 1-1 with Elche. And Valencia losing 3-1 at home to Getafe. There was one other game on the Sunday, previewed and predicted from last week. Now that we sound a bit better, I can actually go to the preview for the game, Joe.
Yep,
another relegation game, which is it seems to be exciting in the relegation zone as well. Joe did 1-0 in this game to Valladolid, and it actually was 1-0. It's another scorecast prediction for me. I'm thinking of I think I've got a big enough hit rate by the looks of it. So, maybe we'll leave that in the pipe. As the stats go, Real Valladolid 50% possession, so it was quite close, like I thought the game would be. Valladolid 20 shots, 8 on target. Almeria 4 on target. Big boost for Valladolid. Their Premier Division, obviously a massive 6-pointer. The only goal of the game was scored within 5 minutes of the kickoff. Manucho with a goal, and then 85 minutes. Real Valladolid, they deserved this game, in fairness. Almeria's quest to get back into the game suffered a setback, really. 16 minutes back into the game, the last 20-25 minutes of the game. This game ending 1-1, but Tosaglieri was sent off for a second, the goal scorer, and in fairness, it was a second yellow card. And when it went down to 10 men, it kind of ended the hopes, really, and Valladolid cruised. I would say, though, that this game should have been out of sight before the second yellow card even came, really. The Almeria goalkeeper, Esteban, I believe, had an outrageously good game, really. If he played like that all season, there's no way Almeria would be in the trouble they was in. But they didn't offer that much attacking threat, really. The possession was quite good. They moved the ball around okay. But there was no real hope in the final third, really. There wasn't enough probing, and they really needed a bit of something to happen for a really. And once the sending off happened, that was the end for them. But the bottom of the league now, Joe, it seems to it really does feel like it's going to the wire now. I mean, I know the preview game is Almeria again, but it's really close down the bottom now, Joe. And I get the feeling that these teams are going to be the ones that we're going to be talking about just as much as Barcelona, Atletico Madrid at the top, really. So I think there's 5 or 6 teams involved with this, Joe, and we're going to, like I said, we're going to be talking about all these teams, probably more than, because there's more people in the race.
Well, I think you're right. I think, when you have a situation where the league is, virtually decided. I mean, if you listen to Alfonso, he's pretty much reserved to the fact that Real Madrid is out because of all the bad things that have to happen to both Atletico and Barcelona, and the fact that Barca and Atletico play each other and their schedules are not, very strong coming up. That we're kind of waiting for that May 18th date and that May 18th game between Barca and Atletico. So really, there's not much to look at in Spain. With all the other positions reasonably decided, the only race in Spain right now is at the bottom of the table to see who ends up staying and who ends up leaving.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I'm just going to run the rest of the results, and then we'll have a look at the table, and then we'll go back to the preview, which is another relegation game. Not surprisingly, was only two more games to wrap up. On the Monday, Granada losing 2-0 at home to Levante, and Real Betis losing 2-1 at home to Malaga. I'm just going to have a look at the table, Joe, and just confirm what we just said. We'll start off a look at the top. Atletico Madrid to the top of the table now after the results midweek, 76 points. Barcelona in second on 75 points, 1 point behind. And Real Madrid now down to third on 73 points. You guys that didn't get to hear the interview earlier, there was a lot of talk about whether Real Madrid can actually come back and win this title. But we was all kind of in agreement that not only the fact that it's 3 points and this Spanish league, especially with the run-ins, it's hard to close the gap, but the fact that Real Madrid's goal difference is inferior as well, we can't really see it happening. So we need Barcelona to draw 2. I think, as Alfonso said, they need to draw 2 of the last 7 games, and you can't really see it happening, Joe, really. But on the flip side of the coin, if you're an Atletico Madrid fan, Joe, 7 games to go, you're a point clear. Okay, your goal difference is not as good, but still, you're a point clear now. I do believe it's Atletico Madrid are away at Barcelona today. I believe it's actually, well, it's today here, but tomorrow there for you guys. This is gonna surely this is where the title decider for me, Joe. I think if Atletico Madrid don't lose at the Nou Camp, they've got a real decent chance. I mean, I know he said that Atletico Madrid will drop points, but surely the amount of confidence that they must have going into this game, this is one thing I would say, especially at home, that they're not letting in many goals. They're not scoring quite as many goals as Barcelona and Real Madrid, but they've got a real tight defence, and they've actually let in less goals than Barcelona and Real Madrid, which is something that people haven't really touched upon, and they've also lost less games than Barcelona and Real Madrid. What do you think, Joe? Do you think if Atletico Madrid go to the Nou Camp and they don't lose, you can't write them off, surely? I don't see you can write this team off just because they're a smaller team with a smaller squad.
Well, this is something I brought up with Alfonso. I said, right now you've got a situation where Atletico and Barca are going to play each other twice in the next 2 weeks for the Champions League. Do they take anything away from it? And it's tough. These teams are both very familiar with each other, so I don't think they learn a lot from these 2 matches. I think the key to Atletico closing out this season is they need to make sure they match pace with Barcelona. I think they. I don't want to say we can write off Real Madrid, but I think it's pretty close. They're pretty close to being done. But Atletico, I think right now what they need to do is they need to match pretty much goal for goal what Barcelona does, and get to the Nou Camp on that 18th, on that May 18th, on that last game of the season, with basically the need to only tie, and then let it play out from there. Ben, for me, I'm surprised we're still talking about Atletico 7 matches to go in the season. I had expected them to have maybe taken a little slip here, fallen off a little bit. They've really impressed me in terms of what they can do, and how they've really maintained their position in La Liga. They're not going to be an easy out, whether it be the 2 matches against Barca in the Champions League or for the title in the end.
No, I mean, you're looking at a situation now where Atletico Madrid could potentially scupper Barcelona's title chances. I mean, if they go to that, like you said, I apologise, I got the dates wrong. I was looking at the Champions League and it flashed up. But yeah, if they go to that last game in this situation ahead by 1 point, then a draw's enough. And for me, if they do that, and the confidence they're gaining for the league, why can't they beat Barcelona over 2 legs? Obviously, Barcelona will be the favourites, and we both expect that, and so does the whole world, that Barcelona will go through there. But Atletico Madrid have shown over a 38-game season, or they would have done if it comes to that point, that they're matching Barcelona in consistency, and that's what you need to do in football. And as they said, the old adage that the league doesn't lie. So it's fair enough. Like I said, Real Madrid, I think the result on last Wednesday's show, Joe, when they lost 2-1 whilst we was doing the show, that had a massive, massive bearing on this title race. And it feels like between that and the El Clasico, like Alonso was talking about, where there was a lot of missed chances in the game. And you feel like in these last two games, Real Madrid have kind of just chucked it in. There wasn't enough. They didn't want it as much as what Barcelona wanted. And I think of all three teams, Atletico Madrid have wanted it more than both this year so far. If I'm honest, I've been reporting on this league. I can't remember the exact start date it was, Joe. Do you remember the date of the first show?
Oh, I don't. I could probably look it up, but I don't have the
it's okay, but
it's early September.
Yeah, So since 3 or 4 games in, and we must admit we was expecting Atletico Madrid to fall away, to not be there, to fall off the pace. But they're not, and they're there, and they deserve to be there. And if they can, not only if they can split Barcelona and Real Madrid, but if they can finish above Barcelona and Real Madrid, not only what it does for the La Liga, but what it does for the world, will be there for everyone to see. And I think maybe it's something like that needs to shake up. Shake up La Liga, and this is why football's fun. But yeah, we'll move on, and we'll keep the Spanish league on the tips of our tongues, because no doubt we'll be speaking about this to the end. And this is another really exciting title race and an exciting league going all the way through. Mm-hmm. I'll just go to the last Champions League place. We'll just run through the league. Atletico Bilbao on 56 points in 4th, 6 points ahead of Real Sociedad in 5th. And Sevilla in 6th, and then Villarreal were 1 point behind Sevilla, but Villarreal taking the last Europa League space. They're 9 points clear with a 15 better goal difference with 7 games to go, so it looks like the European places are locked up in the Spanish league. We'll have a look at the relegation zone, because this is what we're going to talk about today a little bit. Real Betis bottom of the league on 22 points, Osasuna on 30 points in 19th with a minus 26 goal difference. Almeria third from bottom, also with 30 points, minus 25. And then Real Valladolid also on 30 points, minus 18. Getafe in 16, 31 points. Elche in 15th, 32 points. Rayo Vallecano in 14th, 33 points. So these are just the teams within 3 points. So if you look at this, Joe, there's 6 teams, 14th to 19th, within 3 points of each other. And this is only 3 points. If Granada are only 1 point above that, it's only 4 points there. That it's very catchable, and Malaga above that at 5 points. So within 5 points, Joe, you've got 19th to 12th. You've got 8 teams still with a serious chance of getting relegated from this division, and it makes for exciting reading. Top and bottom of this league, and the Liga is it's proved it is one of the most exciting leagues in the world, and a league that not only has Barcelona and Real Madrid, but a league that's got quality throughout and an excitement throughout, which is what makes it fun. And this is why I must admit now there's a lot more Spanish games shown in England. I'm not sure about America, but it's on Spanish. Spanish football is on every weekend night, the Saturday and the Sunday now. So obviously it's becoming bigger and more mainstream. Just going to go to the preview games, Joe, for next week before we move out and we go on to France. We're going to talk about Almeria and Osasuna, relegation match. This is actually 18th versus 19th, so it's second best bottom versus third bottom. Another 6 point. No, this is this Friday, the Friday evening game. Both teams are on 30 points, separated actually only by 1 goal difference. So this is as close as it could be between two teams going into this game. And both teams have got the opportunity to go 3 points clear of the relegation zone. And theoretically, if results go their way, either of these teams could go up to as high as 13th. So it's a massive, massive game that puts points and teams between them. But like I said, barely a whisker between them at the moment. As far as the form goes, the last 6 matches between these two teams, both teams have won 2, and there's been 2 draws. So once again, this is really, really close. Probably not one for the gamblers, shall we say? Mm-hmm. As far as what the bookies think, because of home advantage, Almeria are going to be slight favourites going into this game. And in the form guide, Almeria at home have got a slight advantage. They've won 1 and drew 1 in the last 6 compared to Osasuna, who have only drew 1 in the last 6. So Almeria slightly better form, and also playing at home. So I give the edge to Almeria, but it's definitely going to be low scoring for me. Definitely under 2.5. I would definitely say 1-0 to Almeria for me. If you do want to bet this game, and my prediction, I would say 1-0 in this game, Joe. I don't know if you want to go to France and tell them about how you got the scores backwards.
Yeah, let's do that. Just a quick programming note. It looks to me like for the past 15 minutes or so, as we were talking about Spain, everything is very, very stable. Confirmation from Sir Bob in the chat that everything is stable. So we're gonna run with this, Ben, and while we still have some good audio, we're gonna stick with it and hopefully get through this. Sir Bob's asking if Graham Zusi is regarded as the best player in MLS. Just as a quick side note, just to answer his question quickly, I don't think so. I've got to think right now with the additions of Michael Bradley and Jermaine Defoe up in Toronto, I've got to think you've got to consider one of them the best in the league. I would certainly say Zusi's probably one of the top 3, 4, 5 guys, but I would say that you're probably going to put Michael Bradley and or Jermaine Defoe ahead of him in that spot. Last year, or you're talking about last year's MVP? I'd have to look it up. I think it was Brad Evans from Seattle who was the league MVP. This is probably a better question for Troy. I know, Ben, you and I have wanted to incorporate the championship and MLS into our show a little bit more, but it just seems like every time we try to cut the show down, we still end up at 3 hours. So, but I think just off the top of my head, I think that's where the to answer his question, I think that's where that's who was the previous MVP. So,
just quickly before we move on, sorry, Joe, to interrupt you. What's the last game of the season in the MLS? Is it a similar finish to the English leagues and the Spanish leagues, or is it a little bit later?
Not at all. There's a the finish, the last match in MLS is usually sometime in November. And you know what? Maybe what we should do is once our leagues here wrap up in the last 6-7 weeks, I have a contact with MLS. Maybe we can get him to come on and do a show and talk MLS a little deeper. But I do have somebody that I can contact for that.
We could have a mini show on the MLS. I mean, I'm not going to pretend that I know loads and loads about the MLS because I don't. But I'm happy to do some research on the MLS, and obviously the English players that have gone over there as well, or players that have played in the Premier League or the Championship and so forth.
And Sir Bob is correct. They do run a playoff, so there's kind of a final. Call it the Super Bowl, something like that. There is a one-match championship for MLS to decide the league winner.
Okay, well, we could definitely do a week of MLS. Maybe we make it the week when it's the playoff final, and we review that, and then do a little bit of a talk about the MLS. That would be fine for me, and maybe we could do the same with the Championship after the playoff final. I know that's kind of at the end of the season as well. So maybe we could give the Championship 1 week and the MLS 1 week, so that
right. Well, what we do is the MLS champion is in November. And I'm sure the championship is played in May. So we'll end up doing 2 shows, but I agree we should do something like that.
Yeah.
So, okay. Let's move on into France before we're here till midnight. Starting on Friday the 28th, we have Paris Saint-Germain with first, actually, before I even go into it, with France, we had this week in France, and unfortunately sometimes these leagues get a little boring. This week the French league got very boring, Ben. 10 matches, only 17 goals to speak of. 1.7 goals per match. That's incredibly. And I noticed a difference as I was looking through the scores. There were a lot of 1-0s and a lot of 0-0s. So
2 0-0s. It was painful.
I agree. So again, back on Friday, Paris Saint-Germain winning on the road at Nice 1-0. On Saturday, Stade de Reims 1-1 with Lorient. Nantes 0-0 with Bordeaux. Montpellier 0-0 with Valenciennes. Evian with a 1-0 win over Monaco on a goal by Mangonga in the 84th minute on a penalty. Ajaccio 2-2 draw with Toulouse. Sochaux 1-1 draw with Marseille. Moving into Sunday, I believe our featured match, which I'll just mention the score and go into it after. Saint-Etienne 2-1 over Lyon. We also had Lille with a 1-0 win over Guingamp on a Solomon Kalou goal into the second minute of stoppage time at the end of the match at the 92nd minute. And Bastia with a 3-0 win over. I'm sorry. Stade Rennes with a 3-0 win over Bastia on goals from Makoun, Tournen, and Alessandrini. So let's go into the match that we featured for this week, which was Lyon Saint Etienne. I had this match as 2-1 Saint Etienne. 2-1 Lyon over Saint Etienne, and Ben, you had this one as 1-1. And looks like I got the match backwards. And it was a 2-1 win for Saint Etienne, which was I was kind of surprised winning this match on the road. We all know how strong Saint Etienne is at home, so I was a little surprised to see them to win this match on the road. Started in the 74th minute with a Max Gradel goal. Lyon actually tied this match. I'm sorry, I'm going backwards. Sorry about that. Melvin Erdrig in the 28th minute taking the lead for Saint Etienne, and Alexandre Lacazette in the 39th minute drawing even with the 74th minute goal from Gradel to win this match. Statistics in the match, we're looking at a Lyon possession advantage of 55-45. Shots were 12-6, but the key here, Ben, Lyon had 12 shots on goal, 12 shots, only 2 of them on target. Saint Etienne, 6 shots, all 6 were on target, Ben. I don't think we've ever mentioned a match where we had all of the team's shots were on net. So that was interesting, and obviously that would take you to the reason why they won, because they were actually taking advantage of all of their shots. So So again, we got the game wrong, or at least I did. Actually, you did too. So I'm going to put you in the boat with me. Unfortunately,
take me down with you, Joe.
That's right. So let's go to the tables then and take a look. We have Paris Saint-Germain leading the way, 76 points. Certainly with this one completely in hand, with only with 7 matches to go. Monaco in second place, 63 points. So 13 points back. I think that one's all said and done. Third place, Lille, 57 points, and I think they're going to remain. They're 6 points back of Monaco. I know Monaco had to slip this week, but I think we're going to, admit the fact that Monaco will remain in that second spot. Lille in third place with 57 points. Saint Etienne right behind them, 54 points. And Lyon trying to make a little bit of a race here with it at 48 points, but I don't think they're going to have enough. Really going to be interesting to see that third place, fourth place division, because third place is worth the play-in for the Champions League, and Saint Etienne, who is currently in fourth, is in the Europa position. So a lot of money to be won or lost in that spot. So I think we're going to definitely keep an eye on that. The bottom of the table, the race at the bottom of the table is not quite as interesting as some of the other leagues. We have Ajaccio at the bottom of the table, 19 points, certainly going to be relegated. Sochaux on 26 points. Valenciennes in 18th place on 29 points. Then it's a 5-point jump out of the relegation zone to Evian at 34, Guingamp at 35, Montpellier at 35. And we have a host of teams at 37 points, including Stade Rennes, Lorient, and Nantes. So, who I think at those positions, 8 points ahead, those 3 teams are fairly safe. So, moving into our featured match of the week, we have Toulouse, who is currently in 8th place, playing Lille. I think what our matches are going to be moving forward in the French league are going to be basically it's going to be Lille or Saint Etienne and whoever they're playing from here on out, because of the dire straits that both teams are in and what they're both trying to accomplish. So we have Lille playing on the road at Toulouse, and in the last 6 matches between these two, Lille has won 4, Toulouse has won 1 with 1 draw. Looking at the last 6 matches for Lille, 3 wins, 3 draws. Toulouse has 3 wins, 2 draws, and 1 loss. Featured player for Toulouse is Wissam Ben Yedder, who is their current leading goal scorer. Has currently got 12 goals in 28 matches in Ligue 1 for them. Playing forward, the featured player that you'd want to keep an eye on is a gentleman who actually scored this weekend in injury time, is Solomon Kalou, who plays for the Ivory Coast. He's got 11 goals and 3 assists in 29 matches for Lille. So, again, a strong Lille side. And playing this match, I believe this match is on the road, playing at Toulouse. It's certainly going to be a difficult draw, but Lille seems to have turned it around quite a bit lately. I'm going to take Lille for the win here, Ben. I'm going to go 1-0 Lille over Toulouse for the record, Ben. So why don't you take us over to Germany and get us started there?
Yeah, for what it's worth, I was going to say 1-0 as well. So
Okay.
we'll both get in the boat for that one.
All
We'll go over to Germany, and so you don't have to say it next week, Jan. And now we know.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll start on the Friday because obviously, like we said, we had a Wednesday show. To wrap up the Friday's game, there was only one. That was Schalke beating Hertha Berlin 2-0. We're going to Saturday's games. Bayer Leverkusen drawing 1-1 with TSV. Another surprise there in the title race. But it was over a long while ago. Maybe a surprise for some people. Bayern Munich 3, TSG 3. Modeste taking the lead for TSG, actually, an old Blackburn player. And for Bayern Munich, Pizarro with 2, Shaqiri with 1. Just to let people know, Bayern Munich rested 6 or 7 players for this game, as we expected, Joe. So, you can't really take too much from that. Going to the other games for the day, Mainz beating Augsburg 3-0. Stuttgart losing 3-2 at home to Borussia Dortmund. Marco Reus with a hat-trick there. Wolfsburg beating Eintracht Frankfurt 2-1. And then the game of the day that we reviewed, Freiburg-Nuremberg. We're going to talk about it, another relegation game. We do like these, and in Germany it's just as tight as it is everywhere else. I predicted 2-1 to Freiburg, and I said over 2.5 goals. I got the over 2.5 goals, and I guess I got the Asian handicap as well, Joe. So we was quite close on the money. As far as the game goes, I thought it would be close, and the stats kind of told that really. 52% possession for Freiburg, 48% for Nuremberg, 14 shots for Freiburg, 7 on target, and only 9 shots and 2 on target for Nuremberg, Joe, but 2 on target, 2 goals. But yeah, like I said, Freiburg just edging this, and I think the scoreline was fair as well. But the important thing to take from this game, especially for Freiburg, they're now 5 points clear of the relegation zone, and 5 points clear with 6 games to go. It's to me, they're pretty much safe now. As far as the actual game goes, Pogatetz gave Nuremberg the lead completely against a run of play in the 7th minute before Kermas levelled, and then a penalty from Drumic restored the lead for Nuremberg, and they actually went in at 2-1. And that's the interesting thing for me at this. Nuremberg were 2-1 up at half time, right on the edge of half time as well, and a penalty as well to take that. And you're looking at this Freiburg team, they're down there, and they'd hit the post twice before they win in at half time. And this for me is what teams go down and what teams don't go down. That dressing room, I know as a football player, Joe, you are as well. You have that half-time team talk, and you've hit the post twice, and you're 2-1 down, and you've just conceded the penalty, and you're in the relegation zone. It's easy for heads to drop, it really is. But they didn't, and whatever the manager said, Christian Streich, the Freiburg manager, whatever he said, it definitely worked. And into the second half, Freiburg levelled Mamadi with the penalty. And then Felix Klaus sealed a deserved victory for Freiburg. So there's a lot of mental strength there for Freiburg, and I think taking that forward after this result, I can't see Freiburg going down now. They, like I said, they're 3 points clear now. Freiburg above Nuremberg, and Nuremberg actually ended the game with 10 men after Pogatetz was dismissed as well. This determination and mental attitude really impressed me. I went back and I watched the highlights of this game. I thought if I'm going to be a German, if I'm going to review the German games, I'm going to watch the highlights of a relegation Bundesliga game, and it was a good game. It was a good game. Only 6 games to go now, like I said. But for Nuremberg, looking at it on the other end of the coin, they're only 2 points clear of the playoff relegation place. And an interesting fact about Nuremberg, and they were definitely going to feel sorry for themselves coming out of this game after being 2-1 up, is that they've actually hit the woodwork more than any other team in the Bundesliga. And that might play on their mind going into the last games of the season. But they played quite well here today. But like I said, Freiburg edged it, and they deserved the win. Just going to go on to the rest of the games. There was a couple on the Sunday, I believe. We'll just wrap it up because Sunday was the last games. 2 games on the Sunday. Borussia Mönchengladbach beating Hamburg 3-1, and Hanover losing 2-1 at home to Werder Bremen. Just going to have a look at the league, Joe, before we go to the preview game. Obviously, champions, top of the league, Bayern Munich, 78 points. And then Borussia Dortmund in second on 55 points. and Schalke are in third on 54 points. And now that Bayer Leverkusen have fell out of the automatic places, like we said last week, and now they're down to fourth on 48 points, clinging to that last spot from Wolfsburg, who are only 1 point behind in fifth. This is going to be an interesting battle as well, Joe, because Borussia Mönchengladbach, are in 6 points, and they're only 3 points away from Bayer Leverkusen as well, with a better goal difference. And then even Mainz, outside of the Europa League places, on 44. They're only 1 point away from the Europa League, but interestingly only 4 points away from the last playoff Champions League place. And this Bayer Leverkusen team does not look confident, and I would not be surprised if Wolfsburg or Mönchengladbach, or even maybe two of those teams, surpass Bayer Leverkusen and they drop at that last playoff place. And this could be a changing of the guard for the teams that go into the Champions League and represent the Bundesliga in future, so we'll definitely keep an eye on that. But it's a good battle for the Europa League places as well. Like we said, out of those four teams, Mainz in seventh as well. Only three of these teams are going to get European places, and obviously only one are going to get a Champions League place. So we'll keep you up to date on that, and it's still staying very interesting all the way down to from the top seven. Now Augsburg have fell away in eighth. We can focus on that more. Looking at the other end of the table, bottom of the league and propping it up, TSV on 22 points, Hamburg in 17th on 24, Stuttgart in 16th on 24. We've once again we've got another situation where both teams on 24 points and only a one better goal difference. So like we said, these leagues are very, very close now. Only 34 games in Germany. We've played 28, so like I said, there's only 6 games left. Up to 15th, we have Nuremberg, 2 points clear of the playoff relegation zone, and then that's another 3 points to Freiburg. Like I said, they're 5 points clear of the playoff zone, so we're probably looking at 3 from 4 now. But obviously Freiburg and Hanover on 29, not completely safe. Just going to do the preview for next week, Joe, and give you guys my prediction, because I know somebody's making some money out of them. We'll look at Stuttgart and Freiburg. Stuttgart are in 16th. Involved quite heavily in the relegation fight. Freiburg in 14th. Stuttgart, the team in the playoff relegation zone. A win on Saturday will actually keep them out of the automatic places, no matter what happens elsewhere. Whereas if Nuremberg don't win, then they'll definitely be out of the playoff zone as well. So they need some results to go their way if they want to be completely clear as far as the weekend goes. As far as Freiburg, on the other hand, in 14th. After last week's result, the win that I just told you about, the 3-2, if they win, the worst case scenario for them is they'll be 5 points clear. But more realistically, the teams around them probably won't pick up points, and potentially they could be 8 clear. So you'd say a win for Freiburg, and that's it. They're safe for them with 5 games to go. As far as the form goes, Freiburg have won 3 and drew 1 in the last 4, and going to this game at far superior form. 10 points from your last 6 games when you're a relegation-threatened team is outstanding form, but still Stuttgart are big favourites for this game due to home advantage. I know no one really expected Stuttgart to be involved in a relegation battle at the beginning of the season, for anyone that follows the German league. So this is an interesting game. Freiburg go into it with the form, but Stuttgart, obviously on paper, you would say are the better team, and they're playing at home. And also Stuttgart, of the last 6 games that these teams have played, just to show you how it's been in past seasons, they've won 4 of the last 6. So this is a game where this is down to perception and whether you think form plays a big part. I'm going to go against the bookies for this game. I don't think Stuttgart will win. I think it's going to be 1-1, and I'll take the under 2.5. I just think that this Freiburg team have really tightened up at the back, and you won't see many goals in this game. 1-0 either way, or 1-1, but I'm going to say 1-1.
Ben, I'd agree with you on that one. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I would agree with you on the 1-1. I was actually thinking, even if you had to lean to pick a winner, you'd almost want to lean to Freiburg the way they've been playing lately.
Well, that was the last note. I mean, before we moved on, I actually put this in bold, and anyone who's in the chat, and I will be putting this bet on myself. So, if anyone wants to follow me, then you can. But how about this, Joe? Freiburg to win 1-0 is 14-1.
Wow, that's good odds.
Yeah, so if anyone fancies a flutter of the weekend, and you're not one to do accumulators, which I'm not, this is definitely the one for me. Freiburg, like I said, 10 points in the last 6. They're looking a lot tighter at the back. They could nick this 1-0, and it's going to be low scoring. So, like I said, 14-1 is really, really long. I think anything over about
Sir Bob thinks it's the
8,
blind leading
9
the
is
blind.
probably too long for me.
Yeah, Sir Bob thinks it's the blind leading the blind.
Well, Sir Berg he can laugh on the other side of his face when they win 1-0. But no, seriously, I mean, I don't. I mean, obviously, it's down to the team on paper that they think, but this is one of the things for me where I don't think the bookies have done enough research into the game because they don't think many people are going to bet on it. So, you know, what can I say? I probably know too much about gambling, but yeah, I fully expect Freiburg to stay up, but I do think it will be 1-1, but I definitely think it will be low scoring. But yeah, that's a wrap up for the German league. Take us over to Serie A.
Yeah, let's go over to Italy. We had a Thursday match. I believe it was a makeup match. Inter drawing 0-0 with Udinese. On Saturday, we had AC Milan with a 3-0 win over Chievo Verona. Kaká with a brace and Balotelli with a goal in that one. Moving on as well, Atalanta 2-0 over Bologna. Into our featured match, which I'll give you that score last. So let's move over to Roma with a 2-0 win over Sassuolo. Hellas Verona with a 3-0 win over Genoa. Luca Toni with 2 goals. Ben, I just want to mention this quickly. Luca Toni's third in the Serie A in scoring with 15 goals behind Carlos Tevez and Ciro Immobile. So, you know, everyone thought he was kind of old and washed up, but he's still getting it done there, which is interesting. Moving on, Lazio in one of the more entertaining games of the week. 3-2 over Parma. Sampdoria and Fiorentina 0-0. And Torino winning 2-1 over Cagliari. Goals from Cerci and El Kaddouri for Torino, with Nene scoring in the 77th minute for Cagliari. So those are our matches. Let's go into our featured match, which was Napoli 2, Juventus 0. I got this one completely wrong. You got it wrong as well, Ben, but I got it more wrong, let's say. I predicted 2-0 Juventus on this one, and I had it completely opposite. I did see the highlights of this match. The one thing I would say is that this match was sloppy for Juventus. They didn't play it with much fire. Very sloppy, poor defending, poor recovering, and it showed in the final results of the match itself. So going into the statistics of the match, we had a goal from Jose Callejon, which was arguably offsides, in the 37th minute, and a second goal, which was actually excellent. Dries Mertens, 2 minutes after coming on as a substitute for Marek Hamsik, scoring a second goal in the 81st minute to close out the match 2-0. Statistical information on the match: Napoli with the possession, 53 over 47, which you don't hardly see. Total shots were Napoli 13, Juve 9, with shots on goal 7-2 in favor of Napoli as well. So now this particular match, keeping in mind this is only Juventus' second loss of the season, and it's, I believe, the first time that they lost or they've been shut out in a while. I forget the actual statistic. I think it was like 15 or 16 games that they had been shut out. So they were on, I believe, a 22-match unbeaten streak in the Serie A, and only suffered their second loss of the season. So again, closing that out, Juve losing to Napoli 2-0. Moving to the table, let's get into it. Juve, 31 matches played, 81 points. They're 11 points clear of Roma. Another fact that I heard from Tancredi Palmieri today on BeIN Sport was Roma has their makeup match, I believe, on Tuesday, so they could potentially win that match, and then they play on Saturday where Juventus plays on Sunday. They can actually make up 6 points in this race and be only 5 points back, obviously with an extra game played at that point. So the question was brought up as to whether Roma still has a chance to catch Juventus. I don't see it happening. You know, Juventus has only lost 2 matches all season, only 3 draws. They've won 26. They're undefeated at home, 15-0-0. Only given up 9 goals at home. I don't see it. I don't see it happening at all. So Juve, 81 points. Roma on 70 points on 30 matches. Napoli, 64 points on 31 matches. And then moving into the Europa positions, Fiorentina on 52, Inter on 49, and Parma on 47, with Atalanta on 46 and Lazio on 45 points. So we're really going to see a nice little race for that last position for the Europa spots. Going to the bottom of the table, we have Catania, 20 points, minus 32 goal differential. Sassuolo, 21 points. Livorno, 25 points. Just outside the relegation zone, we have Bologna on 26. Chievo on 27. And then Cagliari up on 32 points, looking reasonably safe out of the relegation zone. So it looks like we've got 5 teams for 3 positions there to be relegated, which is going to make it interesting moving forward. So there's not a lot of tightness in the Italian division, and there wasn't really an exciting match to kind of to go and find. In fact, in the show notes, Ben, I had posted to you that Italy was a little boring this week. So the match that I chose to highlight is one of the big teams. It is Genoa versus AC Milan in Genoa. Looking at their last 6 matches against each other, AC Milan has won 4 and drawn 2, and Genoa obviously winless in their last 6 against AC Milan. On form, in 10th place, Milan is 2 wins, a draw, and 3 losses. And Genoa is 2 wins, a draw, and 3 losses. So both teams averaging about the same over their last 6 matches in the league. Again, 2 teams that are separated by 3 points. There is talk about Clarence Seedorf finally getting these guys back on track and moving in the right direction. So we'll have to see what comes of it. Players to watch on both teams. Starting for Genoa would be Alberto Gilardino. Gilardino is their top goal scorer with 13 goals. Really the man doing all the production for them, seeing that they've only scored 34 goals. So we're looking at a guy that's pretty much scored a third of their goals. On the AC Milan side, none other than Mario Balotelli, the problem child, has also 13 goals. Starting to turn it around as of late, and seeming to have flourished recently under Clarence Seedorf. In his last, I'm just looking for the statistic here. 1, 2, 3. In his last 4 matches, he has 3 goals. He scored against Parma, scored against Fiorentina, and scored against Chievo as well. So we're looking at, somebody that's kind of getting it turned around in terms of Balotelli. Gilardino on the same pace. He has only scored 1 goal in his last 4 matches, and that was a 2-0 win by Genoa over Lazio. So giving a prediction on this one, especially seeing that Milan has kind of turned their season around a little bit. I think it's too little too late to be able to make their way into Champions League or Europa League. But I am going to take Milan for the win. I'm going to take them with a 2-1 win over Genoa to move forward. So, Ben, that's going to wrap up our preview of Italy. Why don't you take us over to England and close out the league coverage?
Put me down for 1-1 for Genoa Milan. I think it's going to kind of just fizzle out the season for both teams. But yeah, we'll go over to England. Joe doesn't do draws, whereas I do. So
that's right.
Anyway, we'll move over to the Premier League, like we said. We keep saying it was a Wednesday show, so we're going to go straight to Saturday, and go from there. Just double checking what the game of the week was this week. Obviously, it was the big Arsenal Man City game, but we'll go through the other results first. Manchester United beating Aston Villa 4-1. I'm sure there's a few people that thought when Aston Villa scored, no doubt Bobby and one of them, that Manchester United were going to collapse, but they didn't. Rooney with 2, Mata, and the P that is Javi Hernandez with the last goal to make it 4-1. Crystal Palace beating Chelsea 1-0. Another one that's probably making Bob go crazy in the chat. No one expected this. I don't think Chelsea really turned up, so fair play. And I must admit, we actually said earlier on in the season, Joe, we kind of want Crystal Palace to stay up, so it's good on both points, but not looking good for my prediction for the league. Going on to Southampton Newcastle. Southampton winning 4-0. Touching a little bit upon the England team because Lallana and Lambert both scored in this game, and I think there's a possibility both these players are going to be in the World Cup squad. Stoke beating Hull City 1-0. Swansea beating Norwich 3-0. West Brom drawing 3-3 with Cardiff in the relegation game. And then the last game of the day is going to be the game we're going to talk about. Arsenal Man City at the Emirates. We're going to go through the predictions first, Joe. I said 2-1 to Man City. You said 3-1 to Man City. Obviously, it finished 1-1. Both of us, me and you, Joe, we both expected a City win here. Obviously, we're surprised that Man City didn't win and Arsenal got something from this game. But this was quite impressive for me for Arsenal. I think they did turn up in this game. I do think Man City could have played better, but at the same time, I don't think you can take away from Arsenal. They did look quite good in this game, and this was a little bit of a flashback to the Arsenal from earlier on in the season. As far as the stats go, Arsenal 48% possession, 9 shots, 3 on target, and City 52% possession, 15 shots, 4 on target. As far as what it meant to the league, Man City obviously missing the chance to go top of the league. Obviously with Chelsea losing to Crystal Palace. Man City, they've got 2 games in hand. They would have gone ahead on goal difference, and they were playing an out of form Gunners, but I do still think that it's a point game. But we'll talk about the actual game. Man City taking an early through David Silva, shall we say, to pronounce it right. But it was Arsenal who really showed a real great desire. Really, if you get to see the highlights of this is why I said I don't think you can take it away from them. They did turn in a really strong second half display, and I think they deserved the equaliser from Flamini. And now it goes on to the Sunday where Liverpool playing Tottenham on Sunday, and they've now really I don't know if you agree, Joe, but Liverpool now kind of got the championship destiny in their own hands. Neither of us really thought about Liverpool. I'm not saying, before Bob goes crazy, I'm not saying Liverpool will win the league, but massive games, Joe. Liverpool City and Liverpool Chelsea, both at Anfield. If they win these games, Joe, you got to look at this Liverpool team and say, well, fair enough, and take your hats off to them. They've kind of come in the back door here, and now they're serious contenders, Joe. Yeah. Oh
yeah, absolutely. And think about it. The majority of their goal-scoring production this season has been from Luis Suarez, and he was actually missing the first 5 or 6 matches of the season. Remember?
Yeah, and that's what I mean. You're looking at this. People are saying SAS, but anyone that knows the Premier League knows it was only one. But still, Suarez and Sturridge, they've looked really, really good. And the one thing here, Joe, is outrageous pace, real outrageous pace. And they look really, really good. This is a team. And I know when Brendan Rodgers came from Swansea, there's a few people unsure about it. And then obviously Liverpool kind of went through that change where it wasn't doing so well, and people were starting to get on Brendan Rodgers' back, which I thought was unfair, a bit like the Moyes thing. Just be quiet and give him a bit of time. But he's doing well there now, Joe. He looks good. He looks like he knows what he's doing. He brought this Swansea team, a team that people didn't think they was going to do as well as what they did. He brought them up. He kept them up mid-table. And now if they can beat Man City, and they can beat Chelsea, then why not? I really do think that they've got a real decent chance now, Joe. And maybe we're talking about City and Liverpool rather than City and Chelsea. I'll put you on the spot, Joe. Where do you think Liverpool will? I know this is Arsenal, Man City. But I'm talking on the Man City side. Where do you think Liverpool will finish? If you had to say now.
Well, first of all, I predicted Man City would win the league, so I have to stick with Man City in first place. I can't back off of that just yet, and I don't think you should back off of Chelsea just yet either. I think this is going to be way too close to call. I think we've eliminated Arsenal from the discussion. In fact, Arsenal's probably a little more worried with Everton than they are with Liverpool at the moment. So, there's no reason they can't finish second. The thing with Liverpool's schedule is they have their 2 toughest matches, which are Chelsea and Man City, at home. They're playing them at Anfield, and I think that is enormous for them. It would be the same thing as if we were talking, if we reversed roles here and talked about Man City and having their 2 matches against Liverpool and Chelsea at the Etihad, we would be talking about how Man City holds everything in their hands. So Brendan Rodgers and Liverpool, first of all, for the comment about Brendan Rodgers, to me, he's starting to look seasoned, okay? And in contrast, I would present to you Tim Sherwood. Okay, Tim Sherwood still looks a little bit like he's out of his league. Although I do admire him because he's at least trying to learn the game. Do you know what I mean? He's making an effort to actually make himself a better manager. He's pretty much accepted the fact that this season, for the most part, is lost, and provided he holds on to his position at Tottenham, he's going to become a better manager. Whether it be for Tottenham or for the next team that hires him, he's going to become better. Brendan Rodgers is there. Brendan Rodgers has done the time, and he's become a seasoned manager. Now, of course, he's not Sir Alex. He's not anything like that, but he's become a better manager, and I think that has really, kind of elevated him, and at the same time elevated Liverpool through what Brendan Rodgers has done for them. He's got them playing. He's really got them playing the way his team will allow them to play, meaning that he has a lot of speed on the team. He has a lot of team speed. Suarez is very fast. Sturridge is very fast. Sterling is very fast. These guys are all quite quick on the ball, and so best to play with a little bit of speed, and that's what they're doing. And when they really get everything going, they tend to remind you of City, because City with a healthy Aguero, plays like that. They play that ultra fast game, and they can play it. And so I think provided both teams are healthy, I can't wait to see that Liverpool-Man City matchup. Although I wish the match was at the Emirates instead. I'm sorry, not Emirates, at the Etihad, than it was at Anfield, because I think Man City just for some reason just plays 100 times better at home than they do on the road. And I think Liverpool gives themselves a fair representation on the road, where I don't think Man City does. So it would be more interesting to watch that game at the Etihad than it would at Anfield. But having said that, Liverpool really holds the cards here. They hold the game at home against City. They hold the game at home against Chelsea. They have the ability to knock these teams out. The City game is even more important, because the City game, you've got to remember, if we extrapolated out to the rest of the season, provided everybody wins the matches they're supposed to, and let's say draws these big matches, City wins the title. Okay? Mm-hmm. We've already come to that conclusion. We're close enough where we can do that kind of math. So the Liverpool City match is a 6-point match. It's a textbook definition of a 6-point match, because it is 3 points City can't get. It is Liverpool's 3 points to have, and it'll be in the past, and it can't be made up. So that is going to be, and I don't have the schedule in front of me, and I'm afraid to start opening windows and lose the stream here, so I don't want to do it. But I would be interested to see when that match is in the scheme of the schedule. It's
Sunday the 13th.
So it's in about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
All right. So that's still a little early, meaning that Liverpool still has the potential to slip. Do you see the schedule in front of you when the Liverpool Chelsea match is?
Yeah, it's the 27th for this month.
Okay, so there's a potential spot for Liverpool to slip, and Chelsea is not a pushover, of course. And with Mourinho at the helm, they can play multiple ways. There's a potential that if, let's say, the match at Anfield ends up as a draw between City and Liverpool, that you could see Liverpool slipping against Chelsea, and then Man City runs over the finish line first. So I think, Ben, if we had to pick a winner today, I think it's still way too early to call. 7 matches to go.
I do. I mean, I still think for me that Man City are more than good enough to go to Liverpool and get something from the game. I think if you offered every Man City in the world a point now, they'd take it. Of course they would. I think you look at the Man City running, especially this month. I mean, I've just got it in front of me. They've got Southampton at home. You'd expect them to take that. And then after that, they've got the Liverpool game. But, like I said, they'll take a point there. But then they've got Sunderland at home. You'd expect them to win that. And then West Brom at home. You'd expect them to win that. And then they've got Crystal Palace away. You'd expect them to win that. So, they can go into May, and they've definitely got the easier running. So for me, Man City are still favourites, but just it makes it such a big game when you can take these games and you can make one game and put so much emphasis on one game. It just makes the game really exciting, Joe. For neutral fans, for people like me who have to watch the Championship every week. This is what football's about. Yeah, this is, you know, you sit back, you know, you have a beer, whatever it is, whatever your enjoyment is, and you enjoy the game. But the amount of pressure, Joe, for the supporters, for the management, you got to feel if Liverpool beat Man City, obviously Chelsea can still turn them over, but you don't want to have to think, well, we need Chelsea to do us a favour. So for me, if Liverpool win that, it's the confidence as well. If Liverpool beat Man City, they're going to go into that Chelsea game saying, well, we beat Man City, why can't we beat Chelsea? So it's very, very, I think the pendulum, this is where it swings. I think if Man City get something from the game, which I do think it will probably be a draw, but if Man City get something from the game, they win the league for me. I definitely put them down as big favourites. I think if Liverpool win, then I make. I think it's going to be a lot closer. Let me just see if we just get the league up. I know it's 4 points. I'm just looking at the goal difference. So if Liverpool win, there'll be 7 points with 2 games. But like you said, they've got the Chelsea game. So if they draw that, Man City can catch up. So yeah, but like I said, Joe, you don't really want to be going into that game needing other things to happen. But I'll make the prediction that if Liverpool win against Man City, then they win the league. And if Man City get the result, then they win the league. But I still do expect Man City to win the league. That's it's just my opinion. Just something about the game, Joe. I do think 1-1 was fair. I do think it was fair. I don't think Man City deserved to lose, and I don't think Arsenal deserved to lose. But 1 point, Joe, something that happened. I don't know if you got to see the highlights, but there was I think it's like 10 minutes in, 12 minutes in, Zabaleta fouled Rosicky. I don't know if you got a chance to see it, Joe. Like I said, it looked to me like there's definite contact, and I think it's a penalty. But Mike Dean obviously he didn't give it to him, and I do think Mike Dean's a terrible referee anyway. I wouldn't want him refereeing any game. How he got to referee this game is a little bit beyond me, Joe. But did you get a chance to see this?
I saw a little bit. I don't remember the Zabaleta foul. I did get to see some of the match, as Saturday was a little on the hectic side, but I did see some of it, but I didn't see the Zabaleta foul. I saw that throughout the match though, Rosicky seemed to be a little heated to me, where he seemed to be a little more on edge than normal.
I think it came from that. I really do think that it riled him. The fact that he didn't get the penalty. I think he felt hard done by, and I don't know whether in the Arsenal camp they're looking over their shoulders now and everything. They're on edge, so maybe it could be a little bit to do with that. But like I said, I think Man City deserved a point anyway. So I don't think giving it would have necessarily been fair. But it just shows you, Joe, this is why it's 38 game leagues and not just 1 or 2 off games, because anything can happen and anybody can beat anyone on their day. But like I said, Joe, I was impressed with Arsenal in this game. They really did push City hard, and they always looked dangerous on the counter. And but Man City, they wasn't going to throw this game away. And I do think this is a point game for Man City, especially with the Chelsea result. And you can never go to the Emirates and say a point is a bad thing. It's one of the hardest places to go in the world. So, for me, it was a point game, like I said. Just going to run up the rest of the week, look at the table, and then go to the preview. Where do we go here? We're just going to go to Sunday's game. I believe there's 2 games. Yeah. Fulham losing 3-1 at home to Everton. Everton putting a big push on. We're going to talk about them in a minute. Liverpool winning 4-0 at home to Tottenham. Kabul with an own goal, and then Suarez, Coutinho, and Henderson. Henderson, another player, Joe, that I think's got better this year. I really didn't rate Henderson, but he seems to actually be doing quite well going into the second half of this season. So
nice
I do think he's
too.
one to keep an eye on. Like I said, he when he first came on the scene and he was scouted. He played for England a few times. I really didn't think much of him, but I think Brendan Rodgers is doing a good job with him. So we'll keep an eye on him for this season and going into next season. But yeah, he does look like one for the future. We'll just go to Monday's result. There was one game, Sunderland losing 2-1 at home to West Ham, and West Ham looks safe. Sunderland in trouble. We're going to go to the league now, Joe, and just regurgitate what I just said about the top of the league. Liverpool, top of the league, 32 games played, 71 points. and then Chelsea 2 below on 69. Man City in third, 4 points behind Chelsea and Liverpool. 4 points behind Liverpool, sorry, 2 points behind Chelsea, but 2 games in hand on both. So if they win both those games in hand, they will be on 73, and they'll be 2 points clear of Liverpool and 4 points clear of Chelsea. Then if we go down to fourth place, same amount of games played as Liverpool and Chelsea, on 64 points is Arsenal. So realistically, they're looking at least a 7-point gap to top, and it could possibly be 9. So you've got to look at Arsenal. They're out the championship race now, definitely for me. 6 games to go. But if we look at the teams below them, Joe, Everton are 4 points behind them on 60. Only a 1 worse goal difference, but a game in hand. So if they win their game in hand, that's 63, 1 point behind Arsenal, and they still have to play Arsenal at Goodison Park, which we're going to talk about. And then we have Tottenham in 6th, 4 points behind Everton, and they've played an extra game. Too much for me to Tottenham to catch Everton. I do think it's Everton Arsenal for me than everybody else. But the interesting thing for me here, Joe, is Man United on 54 points in 7th now. They're 6 points clear of Southampton. You know, obviously this is not a great season for Man United, Joe, but this could have been so much worse. I know the Man United fans have come out the spiel, come out with the spiel, we don't want to play in the Europa League, but it's not about that. It's about where you finish in the Premier League. I think it's embarrassing if you don't finish in the Europa, at least in the Europa League place. I mean, it's embarrassing anyway, but to not be in the top 6 in England when you're a club that's got the prestige and that is a global brand like Manchester United would have been a travesty. And now they're only 2 points away from Tottenham in 6th, Joe. Do you think this last 10 games or so you've seen an improvement for Man United, Joe?
A slight improvement, and I think actually what's going to hurt them is the fact that as we get into the Champions League here in a moment, those midweek games are going to hurt them. Obviously they're without Van Persie now, and the problem is everything with Man United is magnified. Every moist decision is magnified. Whether he goes to the bathroom at halftime or not, that decision's magnified. I think it's too much pressure. Now, I think they're playing slightly better than, let's say, 4 weeks ago. But is it enough to go and catch Tottenham? I don't know. Tottenham, they're having their own set of issues. They're having their own set of problems. And I think Southampton has played their way out. I think Newcastle's also played their way out of potentially, getting involved in this race. So it's really
18 better goal difference in Tottenham as well.
Okay, so they do have that advantage as well. Do they? I don't think they play each other anymore. Do they play each other again before the end of the season?
I can have a little look for you, but I don't think that they do. But I'm just looking at Tottenham's lineup for the end of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, close it down. No, they don't.
They don't.
Sorry,
okay.
I apologise for saying, but no, they don't.
No. So there's no way to affect it there. Again, situation where they're going to try to match a team goal for goal, just like we talked about with Atletico and Barca. I think United can get there. I think the distractions for United to get to that Europa position are greater than the distractions for Tottenham. And obviously next week we're going to have Jeff Douglas on again, who's the big Tottenham fan. And we'll dig into this a little bit further, and obviously with one match closer to the end of the road here. So I think obviously Man United is talented enough to do it. No question about it. Are they mentally capable of doing it? I don't know. I think the fan base generates too much pressure. I mean, you look at the match this weekend. They're flying a banner over Old Trafford saying Moyes out. I mean, come on, And I know most of the fan base supports David Moyes, but I still think there's enough of a faction there to make it an issue. And every single decision, every single point in terms of this team gets scrutinized to the nth degree, which makes it even that much tougher.
I will say two things just quickly before we move on. Firstly, I'm doing this for Joe, but League Two, Rochdale are top of the league in League Two, and I know Joe follows them, so and I do keep an eye on them from time to time. So yeah, it looks like they're coming back as champions, and they're gonna be in League One next year, and there'll only be 1 point difference between one league difference, sorry, between them and Blackburn, which will be unfortunate. Secondly, Joe, the banner that came over, most of the crowd, especially all the home fans, they booed the banner. So for me, they're disappointed with Moyes. They are. They're really disappointed. I mean, I live with a Man United fan. My brother actually went to see the Olympiacos game at Old Trafford as well, and they are disappointed with what's happening there. But Manchester United are not a club that are going to just sack their manager and move on and get somebody else. They don't do it. I wouldn't expect to see him go at all next season. Even if it was a terrible season, I don't think anything would be done until the following season. So for me, they're looking for him to embed. I think he's inherited a very, very weak Manchester United team in comparison. They're not even touching teams like Everton for me at the moment. If they go out, there's rumours, Joe, and obviously, like I said, my brother's a Man United fan, so he's always on the rumour mill that Moyes is going to have 100+ million to go out and spend. And for most teams like Tottenham, even arguably Everton, you'd say, well, okay, you've got the money, but who are you going to attract, because you've not got Champions League football? But I think Man United have got, should we say, a little bit of a pass there because of the prestige and how big a club they are, that when they go in and they say to players, you can come and play for Manchester United and we'll pay you stupid money. So if he's got the backing of the board and Ferguson's still in the stand and he can go out and he can spend this kind of money, then expect to see Manchester United battling with those top four next year. I'll be very surprised if they don't. David Moyes is a brilliant manager. I don't care what anyone says. I think he's going to prove the fans wrong next season. I think it's teething problems, and in fairness, I don't think the team are doing... he does look a bit short on ideas, but I don't think the team are turning up. And he needs to tinker about with the formation, keep the team fit, and bring in, at least for me, 4 or 5 players, definitely 3 or 4, and make a proper run at it, because otherwise this fans won't stand for it for 2 more seasons. I guarantee you, they'll be up in arms come summer after next if something doesn't change. So we'll keep an eye on it. But I think this Tottenham team are dropping a lot of points. They look like they could lose any game at any point. Like Manchester United as well. I'm not saying they're any different, but with 6 games to go, Joe, and it's got to be worth half a point with a goal difference as well. So you're looking at like a 1.5 point difference. I must admit I haven't had a look at the run-ins, but I could see these 2 teams swapping positions, and I would not be surprised at all if Manchester United finish 6th. And next year the Europa League is changing, so if you win the Europa League, you get to go into the Champions League. And I was talking to a few Manchester United fans about this. Would you want the Europa League because you might find it tough to get into the Champions League through the league? And they've all said no. For me, I can understand that, because I don't think Manchester United have got a big enough squad to challenge on 2 fronts. If they go for the Champions League next year, they'd have to bring in a lot of players to be able to battle for any trophies, but more than that, to be able to play the Thursday Europa League games on top of the Premier League games and keep pace with how good these 4 teams are. So for me, even if they say, well, pardon my French, but screw the FA, screw the Capital One Cup, kind of cup, whatever they change the name to, and just focus on the Premier League and the Europa League, and bring in strong enough players so they can make a real good run at this Europa League, which is strong now. I mean, like you said, you got your Juventus team in this Europa League. You get teams dropping out of the Champions League. It's going to be tough for them, but for me, they need to bring 5 or 6 players in, make a run at both, so then if they do miss out and they finish 5th or 6th this year, they can really run at the Europa League, get themselves back in the Champions League, and really, really fund it again. But I still do think they're a couple of years away, Joe, from being able to break that top 4 again. But if you had to pick one, looking definitely for me like it's going to be Arsenal or Everton. I don't think Everton's got the funding that Arsenal does, but Arsenal, they just don't seem to want to go and spend money unless they really have to, and I don't see them spending a lot in the summer. So if Man United do, they're surely going to be back in it, Joe. I mean, apart from the Moyes situation, usually if money's spent, obviously not quite in the Tottenham case, but if money's spent, then it does tend to make a difference.
Right. It certainly does. I think with Manchester United having a war chest to go out and buy players, what I've noticed in recent weeks from Man United is their weakness on the back line. They seem to me very, very weak. I mean, look at the past couple of weeks with Rafael, the way he's played. I thought he's played terribly. I think they need some type of good wing back. Do you see, and I'm just going to throw a name out there, do you see Man United trying to throw a bucket load of money at Leighton Baines, especially knowing that Moyes used to coach Baines at Everton?
So say that again?
Do you see potentially with all the money Man United has, do you see them possibly throwing a lot of money at Leighton Baines to try and get him to come on? I think personally, I think the defense is the most suspect. They need some type of they need a midfielder. I mean, Fellaini's not the answer. Mata's probably a little bit better, but certainly not the answer either. They need somebody that can take control of a match. They almost need Andrea Pirlo, which they're not going to get. But they certainly need to shore up that back line. And
I would say, although Evra looks quite good going forward still, he's very lazy.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, you can't have a fullback that's just going to bomb on and not track back. If you're going to be a fullback in the modern game, you have to be going forward and be prepared to do defensive duties, follow the winger back. And even wingers now are following their fullback back. So for me, he's not working hard enough for that team, so they definitely need that. They need at least one winger, probably two. And for me, they need to work out how they're going to play. I'm not beyond maybe putting Rooney in a kind of attacking midfield role behind the front two, and maybe have Mata off of Van Persie. That could work possibly, and it's definitely something that they should try. But yeah, I would go out, I would buy at least one or two wingers. I would maybe try that, play Rooney attacking midfield and have Mata behind Van Persie. But more than that, for me, it's not even that for me. Even if you say a front three, whether you're going to play 1 and 2, or whether you're going to play one off, or you're going to play 3 up, and you look at Mata, Rooney, and Van Persie, they're strong. It's very strong. For me, an on-form Rooney, an on-form Mata, and an on-form Van Persie, that's Champions League for me. They are good enough. But there's no cover. There's none. If they get injured, there's no who scores the goals when Van Persie is injured. They don't. And you can't say to Rooney, sorry, okay, we want you to provide the goals and score the goals. It won't happen. And you can't say to Mata, well, okay, go and get us 25 a season, because he won't. So you need to buy another backup striker. You can't rely on Hernandez to do that. He won't. You can't rely on Welbeck to do that. He won't. They're not Champions League players. So for me, they need at least 3 or 4 players, and they need to bring in the right players. And I think they'll throw some money at someone. They'll offer them 300 grand a week. They'll bring in maybe a Falcao, something like that, some backup. Maybe play 2 up. That's what they need to do. They need to do something outrageous. They need to do what Arsenal did. Otherwise, they're gonna fall away. This Premier League is absolutely stupidly hard to break now. I feel sorry for the teams going up as much as I want Blackburn to come back into this Premier League. Look at the teams you've got to play. I mean, the top 7 in the Premier League is just stupidly good. It was never this good back in the day, and now it's it's very, very competitive now, very, very competitive. And Manchester United need to change a lot. They do need to change a lot, and I would say out of those teams 4th to 7th, Arsenal, Everton, Tottenham, and Man United, Everton for me, if they could somehow get a decent amount of backing and go out and spend a lot of money, they've got a really, really good manager in Roberto Martinez. Really, really rate him. I did beforehand when he was it loses me where he was before.
Wigan. He was at
Wigan. Wigan. Yeah. When he was at Wigan, I used to say year in, year out, that Wigan team was not good enough to stay in the Premier League. It was not good enough. He kept them in that Premier League single-handedly every single season, and he got his break at Everton. He deserved that. He deserved that break because he was so good. He was the only person that would play a relegation-threatened team. You look at these teams, Joe, Fulham, Sunderland, Cardiff, West Brom, these kind of teams, Palace, and he used to go and play 4-3-3 away from home. But because he knew that he could pressurise and force the team back enough and play a Barca style against the teams around him. I'm not talking about away to your Cities and your Arsenals and your Liverpools. but the teams around them. And the way he played was brilliant for me, and I'm glad he got the Everton job. And I'd like to see him really do well there and give him some money. Say to Martinez, okay, there you go. There's 80 million, there's 75 million, or 100 million, or whatever. And if they make the Champions League this year, there's no reason why they shouldn't do that. Mm-hmm. And I'm quite excited to see what they do. Give Martinez some money. He's really good tactically. And if you ask me, Wenger's in trouble because, Moyes is a really good manager when it comes through. Tottenham are going to go out and probably get another manager. Martinez is a good manager. And if Arsenal don't spend, you could see all three of those teams overtaking Arsenal in the next 5 years. So for me, they're the ones in danger out of those teams. Tottenham arguably could fall away, but I just don't think. I think Everton are a team for the future, and I just don't think Man United will go away. And I think you could see Arsenal fall away.
I agree. And Sir Bob brings up a good point. When we talk about throwing a lot of money, Man United throwing money at players, what he said is that Man United is not going to be able to offer them Champions League next year, so it's not going to be easy signing players. I think one thing that Sir Bob, I think he's absolutely right there. And I think what usually happens with instances like that is that the team usually has to throw more money at the player. So let's say, for example, let's just take Liverpool. Liverpool's going to make Champions League. Liverpool goes after player X, and Man United goes after player X. Man United is probably going to have to spend more money on that same player because they can't offer him the Champions League. And I think it's going to make it a little difficult for Moyes to kind of sculpt the team into what he wants. The second point that I wanted to add when we talked about Arsenal, there was rumor that I had heard that if Arsene Wenger wins a trophy this year, he's actually going to step down. And I think, to be honest with you, I know a lot of people don't really care for Wenger. They think he's kind of doing a lousy job. I think you could see a catastrophic situation. Let's say they win the FA Cup, because they're certainly favored to do that. But if Arsenal wins the FA Cup and then falls out of that Champions League position to Everton, and Wenger steps down, you could see a situation where the next guy coming in is not going to be able to add players. He's going to end up with a team that Wenger knows how to handle and not him, almost like a David Moyes, but even worse. And at that point, Ben, I don't want to be the guy taking that job. I would rather be the guy that replaces that guy than be the guy that replaces Wenger at that point.
Oh, of course. It was a good point that Bob made. I did touch upon it vaguely, but obviously it's a very deep league. But we'll talk about it a little bit. Obviously, saying Manchester United can't offer them. We'll take Man United for example. Can't offer them Champions League football. Possibly not even Europa League football, and that's true. But I do think Man United there's still a little bit of there's that prestige there. It's just something, I don't think. Because it was, it's still present. I mean, okay, they're not going to do anything this year, but they won the league, so they won the league last year. So that for them, it's still in people's mind. They're still a massive club, and I still think they can, when somebody kind of they hangs on to their past. I think that they've got one more season where players will still think, oh wow, it's Manchester United, and they need to capitalise on that. Mm-hmm. They need to go out in the summer and say, look, we're Man United. I hate Man United, so this is not me saying this from a point of view of trying to get onto their side, because I really dislike Man United, I really do. Yeah. But I still think they've got that. Everton and Tottenham are big clubs, and so are Arsenal. But Man United, they're the best. They were the best team of my generation. They were. No ifs and buts. They killed the 90s. They killed the O's, whatever you want to call it. Obviously, you had Arsenal winning some trophies in between and Man City breaking it up. But for me, they absolutely dominated. And people don't forget that overnight. So they've got at least one window for me where if they've got the money, and they're going to have to pay more, of course they are. If Man City say, maybe not Man City, because I think Man City will win the league. But say like whoever finishes third this year or whoever finishes fourth. So we say Arsenal. If they come along and they say, well, okay, Arsenal maybe only offer them 250 grand or 200 grand because they're in the Champions League. I'm talking about someone really world class, and they're in the Champions League. But Manchester United say, well, okay, we'll give you 300 grand, and we we'll put a clause in your contract that says if we're not in the Champions League within 2 seasons, you can walk out and we'll pay off the rest of your contract. Then you'll get players, or if they say 1 season, or they put some kind of bonus in or something like that, because you've got to remember football's a business game as well, and players do want to play in Champions League. No one's disputing that. Of course they do, and they'll definitely think about saying, well, let's just go to Arsenal to play in the Champions League. But if Man United said, look, give us 1 year, and we'll give you 33 or 35% extra wages, and we'll give you a bonus for making the Champions League, and a bonus for goals scored or whatever it is, clean sheets. There's a window here still for Manchester United where they can sort it out. If they don't, then they're going to have to rebuild. It's going to take them 5 years. But for me, they've got a little window here where I'm not saying they're going to do anything amazing. They're not going to challenge for the Premier League title. They're not going to challenge the top 3. I don't think that at all. I'm not disputing that. But for me, this Arsenal team look vulnerable, and they still need stuff done to the team as well. And this Everton team is unexperienced. So if you're going to do it, you do it now. Otherwise, you wait 5 years. That's just my opinion.
I agree. Let's get into the featured match of the week, Ben.
Yeah, we're just going to go over that. I'm sorry, the Premier League.
We got caught.
Everybody's got an opinion, and I know we have a lot of listeners from the Premier League. So, But anyway, yeah, we're going to the match of the week, and it's Everton Arsenal. This is a battle for the last Champions League spot, the 4th spot that we did talk about. It's Sunday, 6th of April, the game. Everton in 5th, Arsenal in 4th. If Everton win, they go 1 point behind Arsenal. With a game in hand, I had a look to see what the game in hand was, Joe. It's away at Sunderland. So you would expect Everton to go to Sunderland and get a result. So if they win this game, they win their game in hand, Joe, they go 2 points above Arsenal with 5 games to go. Obviously we'll talk about the Arsenal thing as well. Whereas a point for Arsenal guarantees they stay above Everton, regardless of their game in hand. So even if they win the game in hand, it will be 1 point, and obviously if they win, it gives them some breathing room because they'll be 7 points clear with a game in hand. So essentially 4. How big a game is this, Joe? Let me ask you first. If you think if Everton beat Arsenal at Goodison, do you think they get the last Champions League spot?
I do. In fact, and that's when we get to the prediction part. I think that's actually going to happen. Arsenal has been a little sporadic. Arsenal's been a little sporadic lately in terms of their performances. They turned in a good one this weekend, but for the most part, they have not been playing up to par in terms of where they were playing, let's say, 3 months ago. So, and on the flip side, I think Everton is playing better than they were playing 3 months ago. Again, playing with a little bit of fire, with something to play for it. And like you said, Martin is definitely a great coach, good tactician. He'll definitely have seen enough of this Arsenal team that he'll know how to break them down. And Arsenal, of course, is not healthy, so that doesn't exactly help their case a little bit. I think Everton is right there and ready for the taking. I think, long story short, I think the only thing Arsenal has right now at this point is the FA Cup. So yeah. That's just my my humble opinion. I don't think they're capable of staying in that position. I really think Everton is coming on a little too strong, and the timing of this match for Arsenal could not be any worse. Yeah.
Well, I do agree. I absolutely agree with you. I think if they win, then they take the Champions League spot. We'll just talk about the form before I give you my prediction. Mm-hmm. Last 6 games, Arsenal have won 3 and drew 3. In the last 6 meetings between the two teams, obviously there was a bigger gulf at the time. As far as the last 6 games this season, the form guide, for the last 6 games, Arsenal have won 2, drew 2, and lost 2. Not really a form of a Champions League team, whereas Everton have won 5 and lost 1. So obviously you can see the disparities there. Really intriguing matchup. That's why we picked this one, and obviously there's a lot to say about it, but we're going to try and condense it as much as we can. But Everton, obviously slight favourites due to the home advantage. But I must say, Joe, the only thing Arsenal have got going for them for this game is they did look good against City. They did. Mm-hmm. I mean, their form's not good. probably most people would lean towards Everton, but they did look good against Man City, and I do think if they play like that, they'll get something from this game. I do, I really do. So, can they? Well, the bookies say 1-1. I do think that the fact that Everton go into this one game, and they must have looked at the fixture list. Whether the players have, they must have done. And obviously the coaches will say, just take it one game at a time. Obviously that's the philosophy you'd go for. But looking at this from an Everton point of view, Joe, if you know it's all in your hand, if Everton win their last 7 games, it's the last 7, yeah. If they win their last 7 games, Joe, then they make the Champions League. So it's in their hands, and like I said before, I just think that Martinez, he loves these situations, these pressure situations. You got to remember, I know it's a different end of the table, but Martinez used to take this Wigan team, last game of the season, you need to win. Martinez loves that. He absolutely thrives on stuff like that. And for me, he's probably looking at his situation, he's probably like a little school kid with sweets. I can imagine Martinez absolutely rubbing his hands together come to this game. And for me, I think he outsmarts Wenger in this game. I do think it's a low-scoring game. It's always under 2.5. This game, always. I'd be very, very surprised if there was 3 goals or more scored in this game. But I personally, I've gone for 1-0 Everton. I do think that's the way I'd pick it. I think Everton go into this. I don't think there'll be much between them. But I think Everton squeeze this game. They win it 1-0 and they take the last Champions League play.
I actually wrote down the score of 1-0 before you said it, so I'm going with that as well. I think Everton, I'd almost want to go 2-1, but it's just I don't see it. And it depends on what kind of Arsenal team shows up. If they show up that defenseless team, then I think I don't think you're going to see the 6-0 drubbing that you saw from Liverpool and that sort of thing. I think this will be a much lower scoring, close game. But I think if anybody's going to be high flying, it's going to be Everton in this one. So, but I agree with you. 1-0 is probably the way this game will end up going. So.
Okay, we'll go over to the Champions League then.
Yep, let's get on to the Champions League. Now, Ben, one thing I didn't get a chance to do before the show is pick a match and prep a preview. So I'm going to let you go ahead with your preview, but I'm going to mention the 4 matchups that we have. And I think what we should probably do is make predictions for the 4 matchups.
Yep.
And I think what we'll do is with the Europa League, I think we'll just mention the matchups. We don't need to make any predictions. We'll probably save that for when we have more time. So,
you can just run through the Europa League if you want the results.
All right. So what we'll do is we'll go over through the first Champions League matches, and then Ben, I know you've picked one to preview for us, so we'll let you do that. So what we're looking at right now is, and probably for me, the most intriguing matchup, and something that we did talk about earlier this evening, Barcelona and Atletico Madrid playing home on home. The second match on Tuesday is Manchester United Bayern Munich, and then on Wednesday we have another intriguing matchup, which is PSG Chelsea and Real Madrid Borussia Dortmund, Ben. So I know you've picked one of these to preview for us. Why don't you go ahead and fire away with that?
Yep, I did pick one to preview. I know it's okay, we'll just preview this one, but I was going to do one quick review and then do a preview, Joe. So I'm just going to do the quick review. We're not going to talk much about it, but I just wanted to pick the Man United Olympiacos game. Okay. I do think that this was one that was a bit unexpected, Joe. I know I did make a prediction for this game. I said 2-0 United. Do you remember me saying to you I thought we'd go to penalties 35-1? But I don't know if that was me being optimistic, but I wasn't far away, Joe. It was actually 3-0. I did actually I messaged Joe on Twitter straight after to say, see, I told you there was going to be something said in the dressing room, and he said, yeah, okay. Yeah. Basically saying, you smug bastard, don't message me on Twitter. But anyway, we had banter, obviously we wouldn't make this radio show. But just quickly, the statistics: 49% Man United, 51 Olympiacos, 10-5 Man United, 13-3 Olympiacos. Like I said, my brother went to this game. He said it looked like a different Man United team. Mm-hmm. Robin van Persie hat-trick lifted a little pressure off Moyes, shall we say, and Man United Champions League quarter-finalists. Taking out this game, Joe, 2 things which is going to follow on to the preview. This is why I wanted to do the review quickly first. After he scored the hat-trick, Van Persie left the pitch on a stretcher. Just to tell you quickly how he scored the goals, first half was a penalty, and then he scored another one before half time, and then the final goal was a free kick just after the restart. But yeah, Joe, Van Persie injured for the game, and also Matt has got an injury. Matt has cup tied, so we'll talk about that when we go on to the next game. Yeah, but one thing I'll take about this game, Joe, which is one guy we haven't really talked about, we shouldn't be talking about, and shows you how desperate Man United are, is Ryan Giggs. I don't know if you get a chance to see the game. It was just absolutely ridiculous. Ryan Giggs, 40 years old, plays the whole game, middle of the park. He just absolutely dominated this game. He looked like the Ryan Giggs of old. He was more creative than any player on the pitch. He made Mata look stupid. He made Rooney look silly. He was in key to the build-up of the first two goals. Absolutely excellent. Man of the match for me. And like I said, Joe, it showed the lack of creativity. The fact that they have to bring Ryan Giggs on, a 40-year-old guy, to play the whole game. But hats off to Giggs, though. The yoga's working. Anyone that doesn't do it, I guess, if you're 40 and you want to play, the best part of 90 minutes at this level, then do shed loads of yoga. But he looked absolutely brilliant, and he essentially, for me, he really did buy Moyes some time there. But obviously, David Moyes going to be really, really worried about RVP being taken off on the stretcher. Just for anyone that was wondering how long Van Persie's out for, 4 to 6 weeks. And he's going to miss both legs of the Munich game. We're going to go straight on from that, Joe. We'll go straight on to previewing the Man United Munich game, because it is kind of a rollover, Joe. Like I said to you, no Mata and no Robin Van Persie. I'm just going to give you my quick preview, Joe, then I'll ask you what you think. The game's, the first leg's April 1st, so it's tomorrow. Mm-hmm. It's not going to be easy for David Moyes. It doesn't seem to get any easier for him, really. Obviously, losing at home to Man City last Tuesday, and then the Moyes out banner flag that we talked about a little bit earlier during a 4-1 win against Villa. So, if you're going to win games and get through to the quarterfinals of the Champions League, and there's still a banner over, then you're under some serious pressure. This is no doubt Man United's biggest test of the season, to trying to beat Bayern Munich over 2 legs. Bayern Munich, like we talk about them, superlatives we've run out of, Joe. Supreme form for all of the season. I know they drew 3-3 in a week, but like I said, they did rest 6 or 7 players. But with no Mata, no Robin Van Persie, this is nearly impossible for me. I don't see United getting anywhere close. Just to let you guys know what the bookies think, they've got Bayern Munich firm favourites, Joe. I do believe that I looked at it, and Manchester United are, with some bookies, as close as 10-1 at home to beat Bayern Munich. I wish I could say that those odds were wrong. I mean, maybe 7s is probably more realistic, but still, to be like 7-8-1 at home in a Champions League game, this to me, Joe, this is like, even the bookies think it's going to be a whitewash. But I don't think Bayern Munich are going to destroy them at Old Trafford. I really don't. I think Moyes does not want to be out of this game coming into the second leg, before the second leg's played even. So I still think it's going to be under 2.5, but I don't see Man United scoring. I'm going to go 2-0 Bayern, 2 away goals going into the second leg, but obviously Bayern Munich to go through, and I do think that they will beat them pretty bad in Munich, and I would expect 3 or 4, or possibly 3 or 4, depending on how much they win in the first leg. But what's your opinion, Joe? Do you think they've got a chance? Do you want to give us a score or anything else you want to talk about?
Do ice cubes have a chance in hell? That's pretty much what I think. I know.
Give us your score prediction first, Joe. What?
I almost considered going 3-0. Bayern Munich, yeah, and I'm actually going to write that down. I'll take 3-0 Bayern over.
Okay.
Actually, let me fix these here. 0-2 and 0-3. I think Bayern Munich. I think they could roll the B squad out there and make it maybe 1-0. They are going to be without Thiago Alcantara, who was injured, but we've talked about the depth of Bayern Munich so many times.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous, and I don't see how they even slip up here. Again, we talked about a couple weeks ago with the fact that Bayern has already locked up the Bundesliga. They have nothing to play for over in Germany. The only real competition that they're worried about or care about at this point is this Champions League. Makes them very dangerous. They rested 6 or 7 players in that draw a week ago. David Moyes doesn't have a chance in this one. I mean, 10-1. I would have offered 15. I don't see it. And the minute Bayern scores one goal, the party's over because they're not going to lose to Man United at the Allianz Arena in Munich. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
So
I agree with that. I don't think they're going to get turned over because I don't see them going for it at home. I think even if they're 1-0 or 2-0 down, they're probably going to try and keep it tight. That was for me why I went for 2 rather than more. Mm-hmm. Just for this particular leg, I could easily see it happening. In the return leg. Okay, so you've gone for 3, Joe.
I'll go 3.
Second, just one other quick question. No matter, no RVP for both legs. That's it, really, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're not going to survive with Fellaini and Rooney doing all the legwork. Maybe Rooney and Mata would have given him a little bit of a better chance. I don't think even Mata and Van Persie on the field really do it for United against Munich. I think they need a lot more than that. And Munich under Guardiola plays that tiki-taka style. They could break down a Man United, and we talked about how weak Man United is on the back line. A team like Bayern Munich is built to beat a team like Man United. A team like Bayern Munich is built to beat a team like Man United. They're designed to do it, and I just don't see them having any chance. I think you could offer somebody 15-1 and still feel a little safe, and I just don't see that. This is not the same Man United that you saw a year ago or even 3 or 4 years ago. This is a very different team, and likewise for Bayern Munich. We thought under Jupankis, how could they possibly get better? Ben, I think they got better. I don't know how.
I do actually think they got better. But yeah, like I said, this Bayern Munich team are outrageous. The only reason for me why I think that I'd possibly give 7 or 8 is I do think that this game is everything for Man United. It really is everything, and they are weak going forward. But I could maybe see the defence really putting in a good go here and maybe digging in. And you need the players like the Phil Jones and the players like that to go out and to be dirty, mm-hmm. to really get dug in. Like, you're not going to beat this Bayern Munich for skill. You're not. There's no chance. You need Rooney. You need
Ryan Giggs, about 5 years younger.
Yeah, you do. But I don't think they're going to beat them. That's the thing. I don't think that they're going to provide enough. They need to do something different for me. And the only way you're going to do that is to get some grit, in my opinion. At home, I don't think they've got a chance in the tie at all. But as a one-off game, and I could just, maybe occasionally they get a draw and at home, and that for me, Bayern Munich deserve to be massive, massive favourites. But still 10-1 at home for Man United. I never thought I would see it in my lifetime. Well, not this close, if you know what I mean. So,
right.
But yeah, we're both agreed. Bayern Munich to go through.
Surely.
Joe says 3, I say 2. But yeah, Man United are out. It's a shame that that one of the English teams is definitely gone. But yeah, I think it's open to shut case, Joe. I will watch it tomorrow, and I'm sure we'll have some Twitter fun. Anyone else that wants to join in, like you said, you can tweet Joe or you can tweet me. And if you want to abuse Man United, or if you want to talk about either of the teams, then feel free.
Yeah.
Just going to run through the last 3 predictions, Joe. Just don't need to do anything else. We're just going to go predictions quickly.
Yeah.
Barca Atletico, Joe. It's at the new camp.
At the new camp, I'm going to take Barcelona in this one. I'm going to take them 2-1 over Atletico, and I'm going to take Barcelona to win to beat Atletico as well. So Barca 2-1 for me, and I think they will move on ahead of Atletico. Ben, how about you?
I've got 2-0 Barca, but Barca to move on. Yeah. Okay. PSG Chelsea, Joe.
This one is the other one that is intriguing. I personally think Barca Atletico is very intriguing, but I think we've kind of covered them for the most part when we talked about Spain and the Alfonso Duro interview. This PSG Chelsea game, I don't even want to predict. I think it's going to be very close. I'm gonna do something I never do, Ben. I'm gonna take a draw, and I'm gonna take
a draw.
Yeah, and I'm gonna take a 1-1 draw.
Right.
And by doing that, boy, there's something about this Paris team that just doesn't. I want to take Chelsea to move through, but there's something about this PSG team I just don't want to pick against them. I'll take the draw. But you know what? I'll take the draw and I'll go out on the limb. I'll take PSG to move through.
I've got PSG to win 1-0 in France. I do think if someone actually, I like to get very specific with my predictions, but I would take PSG to win 1-0 and Chelsea to win 1-0 in the return leg, and I think this one's going to extra time. I really do.
Okay.
I just think that you might as well. I think it will go to extra time, then flick a coin. I think you could possibly see penalties. I'm not sure what the odds are in this game for this tie to be decided on penalties, but I do think these are two closely matched teams on similar kind of form levels. I think if I had to pick one team, I would probably marginally pick Chelsea, just because I think there's a bit of experience there, and also Jose Mourinho maybe gives them a slight edge. So I'm going to say PSG to win this game 1-0, but Chelsea to go through.
And Ben, I've got to say that of all the teams that are left, I think we're going to see Bayern Munich in that final. Okay, I think whichever one of Barcelona, PSG, and Chelsea does not get Munich in the next round will move through. Okay, so whoever wins this PSG Chelsea match, provided they don't get Bayern Munich, it's going to be either Barcelona or one of these two teams that's going to take Chelsea. I don't see any of the other teams, getting there otherwise. And I think the only catastrophe would be if you had a Barca Chelsea or a Barca PSG after this round. I think Bayern's going to play one of either Barcelona, PSG, or Chelsea in the final.
Yeah,
that's what I think. So, last match: Real Madrid, Borussia Dortmund. What do you think?
I've got 2-0 Real Madrid.
Yeah, I would go with that as well. 2-0, and then obviously Madrid moving through as well. I would imagine.
Yeah, that would be my prediction.
Yeah, I don't think Dortmund. I think Dortmund's kind of run out of luck here at this point, and not having Mario Götze anymore. They're just a different team from last year. They're still a great team, but they're a different team from last year. So I don't think. I don't think that.
Sorry, just to interrupt you. I had spoke with my brother before the draw, and he said that the only chance he thought they had was if they got Dortmund, and I completely agreed with that. I think that the two, Man United and Dortmund, were the standout weak teams for me in this quarterfinal draw. Okay,
now I think what we're going to do with the Europas, just to put them on record, but I know we're not going to pick any scores. Let's of the matchups, of the 4 matchups left, because they're also in the quarterfinals as well. I'm just writing down the names. Let's pick winners of teams that are moving through. And I'm just writing them down quickly here. Okay, and Juve. Okay, so the first matchup is AZ Benfica. Ben, who would you take there?
I said Benfica. Probably Benfica.
Yeah, me too. Okay, Basel Valencia.
Oh, Basel Valencia. I'd probably take Basel. I like Basel this year.
Okay, I'm gonna take Valencia on that one. I think the Spanish teams are very strong. Porto Sevilla. Now this is an unfortunate one, but because I think both these teams are very strong. But who would you take, Porto Sevilla?
I'd take Porto.
Yeah, I think so too. I think this one. I think of the matchups, this is the most interesting to watch. Last one, Juve and Lyon.
I'll take Juve.
Yeah, me too. So okay, so for the record, we both have Benfica, we both have Juventus, and we both have Porto, and I took Valencia and you took Basel.
Yeah, I think I just fancy Basel to cause an upset there. I don't know what it is. It's something in the water, so we'll see.
They're a solid team. I like I said, I think of the four matchups, I think that one's going to be the closest. I think the other one's going to be very close.
Oh, no doubt, yeah.
Yeah, I also think that Porto Sevilla one's going to be pretty good too. I think Sevilla's playing very well right now, and Porto, I believe, is leading the league. So, and Sir Bob, from your mouth to God's ears, I hope Juventus does win it all. We'll be very happy, and we're not shameful, like Man United. We'll be more than happy to take the Europa League. So, Ben, we're at that point. This is the biggest part of the show, I think, next to the Alfonso Duro interview, the World Cup preview. And for a little twist tonight, what we did was, obviously, Ben, you're very familiar with the English team. I'm very familiar with the Italian team. You being English, me being Italian, we should. It'd be shameful if we weren't. So rather than have me preview Italy and have you preview England, we flip-flopped it. And I thought we should do that just to get the other's opinion as to what's going to happen here. So why don't you start us off with Italy and take us through what their World Cup preview?
Yeah, I'm going to do a little preview. And then I've actually picked two player matchups that we can have a little talk about. And then I'm going to kind of get some predictions and we'll go for this. Firstly, I'm just going to give you the odds. William Hill have got Italy at 25-1. Obviously, we previewed the other two teams in the group. Italy are favourites for this group, and for me, in my opinion, they will win the group. I do think there's a slight edge to Italy, so that's my opinion before we go forward. Firstly, talking about how they qualified, I do think that they was a little bit below par, really, qualifying before raising their game, at the finals in the tournament. But they did take imperious control in the end of Group B in the European zone. I must admit, at the beginning, it did look like their task appeared potentially tricky when they got Denmark and Czech Republic and Bulgaria in Group B. You could have asked for an easier draw than that. But the Italians surged through unbeaten, but their tickets to Brazil were time to spare, going lie on the beach, meaning they head to the finals confident that their eternal, like the revolution has been a success. Cesare Pranardi actually said that it seems to have consigned Canaccio to the past. It's now obvious that you can't get results without playing attractive football. I thought that was a good quote. And that's one thing that's changed for me over the last few years. I do think that Italy play more attractive football now, and it's definitely more attractive to watch. But since then he's led the side to the Euro 2012 showpiece and a 14th consecutive FIFA World Cup final berth. All whilst he says remaining faithful to an attacking style of play, and like I said, that's there for everyone to see. A little bit about their history. 4 world titles to their name: 1934, 1938, 1982, and of course the latest one, 2006, Joe, which you told us about, and we had a little bit of a moment about how exciting it is to be about during success for your country in a football environment. A couple of runner-up slots as well, 1970 and 1994. Italy, they're only second to Brazil on the all-time FIFA World Cup honours board. That's not bad, Joe, considering I cry every year in the summer. As far as the Italians go, they're the only team, along with the Brazilians, to won the competition twice in a row as well. I think it's personally a little bit greedy, but no, it just shows the absolute dominance of Brazil and Italy. For me, they're the two teams. They for me they pretty much have been for a long while. I mean, okay, the Spanish have come in of late, but for me they were the two teams consistently over the last 30 years or so. But the 4-3 semi-final, I must admit I wasn't around for this, Joe. You was. I don't know how old you was, Joe. I'm not going to tell everyone on air. But the 4-3 semi-final defeat to West Germany in Mexico. Actually no, sorry, Joe. I'm making you too old. So I don't know. Yeah, no, actually, I added it up wrong when I put the thing down. Sorry, I apologise. He's not that old. But yeah,
I was alive. I was only 2 years old because that was, I believe, 74.
What year was you born? 74.
I was born 72. I believe that match was in 74.
Yeah, that's the thing. See, I read it as well, not as 80, but I did the maths that wrong. No one would believe that I play poker for a living, would they? Anyway, yeah. So this was 2 years before Joe was born, but I'm sure that you was racing to become a child, Joe. But anyway, you must have seen the highlights of this game, Joe. The 4-3 semi-final defeat to West Germany.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be one of the most spectacular matches in the history of the tournament. I've lost count. I think I've probably seen this 3 or 4 times, the highlights, like the Sky Sports World Cup shows, like the history shows, like I quite like watching for the history. But yeah, great match. And if you haven't seen the goals and the highlights from this match, then go to YouTube and have a look at that semi-final defeat to West Germany 4-3. It was a great game. As far as the key players go, I do think Buffon has to be mentioned. Great captain, awesome goalkeeper. For me, the best goalkeeper of my generation, and is the only survivor from the 2006 triumph, Joe. So hopefully he gets to play, along with Pirlo as well. How Pirlo is still going is beyond me. It seems like he's gone to the fountain of youth, and I don't know, because he doesn't see. If anything, he seems to have got better. Absolute wizard on the ball. When he plays, and he plays to his full potential, there's nobody like him in the world for me. He's involved in everything. But they've also got a bit of youth to their team as well, broken into the team. Ranocchia, the central defender, I highly rate him, and Verratti as well. I like those two. I do think that they're definitely going to be there or thereabouts going forward. Up front, there seems to be a bit of a transition, really, between old to new, shall we say. The emergence of Shaarawy, is it? I'm never quite how to pronounce his name, but yeah, Stephen O'Sharry. I do think he's brilliant for me. I really do like him. I think he's I guess underrated. Although he's known, I still think he's very underrated, Sherry, and I'm really looking forward to seeing him at the World Cup. And obviously Giuseppe Rossi as well. He's returned to the fore, so that there's a definite mixture between old and new there. And then also talking about the old style as well. You know, there's bound to be a bit of a vital role for Balotelli. I mean, I can't imagine that he's not going to get on the pitch and cause some controversy. And obviously Osvaldo as well. So, like I said, I do think there's a lot to look at for the team, young and old, and I think that's the kind of mix you need to do well in these competitions, and to go far in these competitions as well. Going to talk about a few former stars as well. Dino Zoff, Paolo Maldini, one of my all-time favourite defenders, and for a long while, Joe, the best in the world. Maldini for me definitely was the best in the world. Absolutely love Maldini, and I always remember when we used to play FIFA. I always wanted to be Italy. So yeah, and Silvio Paola as well. But if I had to name my all-time favourite Italian star, I would have to say Ravanelli. I absolutely loved. I turned into Scooby-Doo. I loved Ravanelli. Just such a character, and when he came to the Premiership under with Middlesbrough, at the same time as Giannini and players like that, it was brilliant for me. The goals he scored, and always putting his shirt over his head, it started a craze in England where anyone that scored a goal did that. So he had a big effect on English football, and a great player in his own right. Just going to say to you, Joe, before I go to the matchups, I want to ask you about which player you would choose. England haven't beaten Italy in a competitive game in 36 years, Joe. Mm-hmm. Doesn't really stand us in good stead. And for anyone that knows me, I'm 29, so it's a bit embarrassing for me. Yeah. But yeah, I'm going to go to just a couple of matchups, Joe, really. First, I've got some interesting ones. Buffon versus Hart. Firstly, Joe, I'm not talking about the Buffon of old, I'm talking about Buffon now. Obviously, not quite as good as he was, and I know this Hart can be inconsistent, but we're talking about this. To me is the Joe Hart going forward. I know Sir Bob does rate Joe Hart and I do as well. I do think Joe Hart is a world-class goalkeeper, and I think he's getting back to where he was. The Joe Hart of the last 3-4 months has been awesome. He's not really making any mistakes anymore. Maybe slightly punching too much, but I mean, bar that, for me, just world class. I don't think there's really a better shot stopper around. He's absolutely amazing across the ground. He comes out very, very quick, quickest off his line for me. Of top 3 in the world off his line, definitely. Who would you take at this moment in time, Joe? And do you think Buffon's best game is better than Hart's best game at this moment?
The problem is Joe Hart is young. We've talked about it a million times. Joe Hart's inconsistent, and I'm going to piss Sir Bob off. I'm sure I am. But Joe Hart, my issue with Joe Hart is his inconsistency. I think if Joe Hart was consistent, he would easily be one of the top 5 goaltenders in the world. No doubt about it. Keep in mind, even with the, I don't know if you saw the highlights from the Napoli-Juventus game from yesterday, Ben. Juventus.
I haven't had a chance to know.
Juventus looked like Buffon looked like the Buffon of old. That game is 2-0 because of Buffon. And in fact, the commentators on BeIN Sport, I think it was Ian Joy, who said that the man of the match in the Napoli-Juventus game was Gigi Buffon, and he's the losing goalie. I mean, that was the kind of saves he was making yesterday. He looked like he was 10 years younger. And because of that, I would say that if Buffon played his best game today versus Joe Hart's best game today, I would still take Gigi Buffon today. I think the margin is very, very close. I mean, we're talking. I mean, let's start throwing other goaltenders in there. Peter Cech, okay. Peter Cech's A game versus Joe Hart's A game today. I think it's debatable. Ilka Casillas' best game versus Joe Hart's best game today. It's still debatable. Do you know what I mean, Ben? We're arguing.
Oh no! Obviously, it's debatable. That's why I brought it up.
And like I said, Sir Bob thinks I'm drunk, but I think it's debatable. I think if I sat here and said Gigi Buffon, I don't think you could argue much. I think if I said Joe Hart, I don't think you could argue too much. I think it's that close. And I think the issue is on the long term. Again, and we're talking about Joe Hart's best game versus Gigi Buffon's best game. Gigi Buffon's best reaction times are better than Joe Hart. End of story. There's no arguing it. We can pull out the film from yesterday, and you can see it for yourself. I do agree. Down low and off the line, Joe Hart's a better goaltender, no doubt. And I'm not going to. Debatable whether I should be on next week. It is my soundboard. I don't know if you know about that.
Well, in fairness, I must admit, like I do, I think down low and off his line Hart is better. But in fairness, as much as it makes me feel like an absolute Nazi, should we say, I do think that the best games of both, I probably do take Buffon by like a margin. It's just so close, and I do think that Hart has the potential to be as good and if not better than Buffon. I really do, because I think he's so quick off of his line, and playing as a goalkeeper myself, I mean, I'm having to give it up because I've got too many things in my life at the moment. But playing as a goalkeeper, getting the area between the stretch of your arm and the bottom of your foot, getting in that gap and getting down low is the hardest thing for a goalkeeper. And Joe Hart is just so good at it. He is so good. He gets his hands down so well, and he spreads himself really, really well. He's a big presence, but nimble as well. And I think with the right nurturing, Joe Hart, for me, is potential to be best in the world. Definitely best in the world.
And Sir Bob, one thing I just want to bring up quickly. Sir Bob said Joe Hart hasn't played his best game yet. I think the world is waiting.
I agree with that.
And I would agree with that too. But I also want to actually take that a step further and say, when? When is Joe Hart going to, how many players in the world, no matter what sport we're talking about, we talk about potential. Okay? Potential doesn't win games. Okay? Performance wins games. So, when is Joe Hart going to give us that game? Okay, Gigi Buffon has given us that game time and time again. And again, I'm not arguing with the fact that Joe Hart's a good goalie or not. I think he's a great goalie. I think he's a fantastic goalie. But when do you sit there and say, okay, Joe Hart hasn't given us his best game? Okay, well then Joe Hart is not the best goalie because is he capable of giving us his best game? I think in the end, if we took Joe Hart's absolute best game and we took Gigi Buffon's absolute best game, it's close. It is awfully close. I don't think there's and again, I don't think there's anything wrong with choosing Buffon or over choosing Hart or choosing Hart over Buffon. But again, you bring up a point. Joe Hart hasn't played his best game. Well, until Joe Hart plays his best game, Gigi Buffon's better. Okay.
No, like I said, I did take Buffon by a smidgen, but I wanted to talk about this because I knew we could have a decent conversation about it. Me as a goalkeeper, you as an Italian, Bob in the chat as a Man City fan. I knew that all of us together we could have a good chat about this, so this is one of the reasons that I brought it up. Like I said to you, Joe, Buffon was my favourite goalkeeper growing up. The reason I wanted to play in goal and the reason I do play in goal is because of Buffon. So I can't, so there's obviously an affiliation there. But I just think that I agree with you. Buffon's got better reaction times. He has. There's nobody like it in the world still, and that is why he's playing at this level. I don't know. It's sunk in the water in Italy. But Buffon and Pirlo just seem to just keep going and going.
Steroids.
yeah. I don't know. Maybe they might be doing yoga with gigs. We nobody knows. But it is very, very close. Very, very close. And I would not. I wouldn't argue with anyone that wanted to go on any side of it, really. It just, for me, it's an interesting one. And they're going to get to face off against each other, and we just don't want to see penalties again, Joe.
Well, we won't in this case.
I can't take it anymore. I really can't. I've had too much stress in my life, I think. I'm 2 weeks into giving up smoking as well, so I think if it goes to penalties again and we lose, I'm in trouble. So
you'll be chain smoking again, that's for sure. So.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so we'll move on to the second one that we was only going to do. I'm only going to do two. Sharawi, who I really, I can never pronounce his name, but I really do rate him. I think he's a great up and coming star, and I do think he's going to play a big part at the World Cup for Italy. Joe, I kind of wanted to get your opinion on him first before I say we're going to compare him against him. What do you think about him? Would you start him in every game? How much influence do you think he has? And do you think he starts for the England team?
Well, that's an interesting question. I think Stefan El Shaarawy, I think one of the first things we talk about is the same kind of thing that we talk about with Joe Hart, is potential. El Shaarawy has the potential to be the top striker for the Italian national team, possibly even better than Mario Balotelli. But he's injured. He's currently trying to, he's coming off of injury, trying to break into that AC Milan squad again. And he's young. I think he's 23. So he's very young. He's very, very fast. He's very good with his feet. Does he start on this English team? Oh boy, I don't know. Wayne Rooney, Daniel Sturridge. Today, no, he doesn't. He doesn't start for the English team. Does he have the potential to start for the English team? Yes, no doubt about it, 100%. But not today. It's going to be interesting to see what his recovery is and what kind of playing time he gets moving forward. Now, keep in mind, he's going to have to get through Mario Balotelli, and we all know what type of goal scorer Mario Balotelli is. He seems to relish these big moments. He's going to have to get past Giuseppe Rossi. Giuseppe Rossi, I think, is he's fourth in the Italian league right now behind Luca Toni. Luca Toni's got 15 goals. Giuseppe Rossi has 14 goals. He's missed the last 6 weeks, Ben. He's missed the last 6 weeks, and he's still fourth in the league in scoring.
Yeah.
When he comes back, I know Prandelli said that in regards to Giuseppe Rossi that I'm not gonna start a guy if he hasn't been playing for his team. I think they'll take Prandelli out back and shoot him if he doesn't play Giuseppe Rossi, no matter what. I really do think that.
Probably.
So I think as long as Giuseppe Rossi satisfies Prandelli's requirement of getting on the field for Fiorentina before the World Cup, I think that you're starting to, if he plays some type of 4-4-2, and it depends on what kind of formation he plays, but the starting formation
they're
is
talking
going,
about a 3 possibly as well, aren't they?
okay, yeah, if it's a 3, you might see El Shaarawy. I don't know that you see Osvaldo over El Shaarawy. It's going to depend on where El Shaarawy is in his recovery. But I certainly think Balotelli, or you might see oh boy, his name just escapes me now. He plays for Udinese. Not for Udinese. He plays for Parma. And I can't think of his name right now, but I'll find it. But I think you see Giuseppe Rossi and you'll see Mario Balotelli there, no doubt about it. So, it's going to be interesting from there.
Okay, I think you answered it. So I was going to say Shaarawy versus Rooney. So would you take Rooney at this point in time?
I would still take Rooney.
Okay.
I think
and quickly,
they'll check in a couple of years.
Okay, yeah. Okay, that kind of leads me on to the second one. Shaarawy or Sturridge? Who would you have taken forward with potential?
I still think I take Sturridge. I think I think they're both on potential. Both Sturridge and El Shaarawy are better than Wayne Rooney. Okay, I've always thought Wayne Rooney was a little overrated personally. On potential, I think
he had a lot of potential as well, but he just never seemed to hit that high. He could have been world class, but he seemed to. I don't know.
Certainly, I agree. But I think right now you still take Rooney over Sturridge. I still think you take Sturridge over El Shaarawy. But again, depending on that recovery, I think you could see easily Sturridge and El Shaarawy over Wayne Rooney. I think right now, let me ask you, Ben. Let's turn the question around: Sturridge or Rooney? If you could only start one of them, Sturridge or Rooney, which one would you take?
Ooh, for me, Rooney's been so hit and miss of lately. He really has, and Sturridge has just been so good. I think you have to take Sturridge. I mean, I do think Rooney, he's got that little bit of magic that I don't know if Sturridge has. Like just glimmers of things that I don't think many players do have, and that's the world class name that thought were going to come through, and it was going to be like that, day in day out. But it's not. I think I'll probably start Sturridge. I think I probably do. But I think I play them together though.
Oh, certainly. I think Sturridge adds that nice dose of speed that Rooney doesn't keep. It helps keep a team.
Yeah. Well, if you want to take a look at our top line.
All right, so let's go into England. England, how they got there. They won Group H in the qualifying stages by 1 point over the Ukraine, which proved to be a savior because Ukraine actually was eliminated in the play-in game. Looking at I'm just looking at the traditional or the most used 11 for the English formation. The most used 11 for the English formation are two strikers we didn't even talk about, Ben. We talked about Sturridge, we talked about Rooney. They don't have them listed. They actually have Andy Carroll and Welbeck as the starting forwards. Joe Hart, obviously, in goal, who we discussed earlier. One of the things I wanted to bring up with the English squad was at left back. Obviously, their options. They certainly have a couple of decent ones. And the two players that I want to highlight are Ashley Cole versus Leighton Baines. It looks to me like they've used Cole more than they've used Leighton Baines in their normal starting 11. But just looking at, I believe, the last match, and I'm getting this information from Who Scored, they used Ashley Cole there as well with Danny Welbeck and Wayne Rooney playing up top. But we all know the type of attacking quality that I think Leighton Baines is, in terms of moving forward, is better than Ashley Cole. I think Ashley Cole is a little better defensively, and like we talked about previously, getting back to playing both ends of the field, I think Leighton Baines has a hint of laziness about him, where Ashley Cole, I don't get that hint of laziness. So the question I'd ask you, Ben, is who would you start on the left back? Would you rather see Ashley Cole take that starting spot or Leighton Baines?
I think this one is really, really tough. I really, really do. I think when you put them both together, I think if Ashley Cole had played all season, I would probably start Ashley Cole, in all honesty. But I think because Azpilicueta has kept him out, I would probably start Leighton Baines. I don't think that somebody that's played as little football as Ashley Cole has this year should play in a game this big, because it's very, very close. It is very, very close. So I agree with you 100%. I think Ashley Cole's a better defender. Obviously, Leighton Baines is better dead ball. I think Leighton Baines is a better crosser of the ball. I think Leighton Baines is a better shooter of the ball. So it does come down to, a few small things, possible laziness. I do think Ashley Cole tracks back better. I think you're correct there as well. I just think that Leighton Baines offers more going forward, and Ashley Cole offers more defensively. And it's one of those where almost you would want to choose the left back dependent on the team you was playing and who the right winger was. Because obviously, if the right hand side of the team is not particularly fast or not particularly threatening, then I would definitely play Leighton Baines. And if they was, then I would probably definitely play Ashley Cole. But as it goes with how little football Ashley Cole has played, I would, as a default, probably start Leighton Baines.
Okay. The other question I have is, and I don't know his status, I wasn't able to find much, but Theo Walcott, who would also be a nice little addition to this team, tore his ACL. It's got to be at least a month or two ago. Tore it before Radamel Falcao. Everyone remembers him famously being carried off the field on a stretcher, holding up 2-0 to the fans. I can't remember the team he was playing against. But Sir Bob is saying in the chat that he's...
it was Tottenham.
Oh, it was Tottenham, okay. But he's not going to be ready for the 2014 World Cup. So that was a question. I'm looking at basically the most used formation for England for their midfield. Decent midfield. Ashley Young, Scott Parker, Steven Gerrard, and James Milner, with the backline of John Terry, Julian Lescott, Ashley Cole, and Glenn Johnson. Where does into this?
I'll just answer your question quickly about Theo Walcott. I know Bob said he's out. They did offer him some, they was going to inject him and try and force him to get through to play, but he said that he didn't want to risk his career, and also he's got a baby on the way, so he definitely won't be playing at the World Cup. As far as Frank Lampard goes, where does it leave him? I think it leaves him on the bench. I don't think he starts. I would definitely start Gerrard. I think I would definitely start Wilshere. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot going through that England team. There's a lot of play he should play. I mean, Andros amazing when he came in. And if he played like that, I would definitely start him. Oxlade-Chamberlain is another one that if he had enough games, and he possibly start him from the bench, but he's one that I wouldn't be argued against starting. But then I never used to rate James Milner, and now James Milner suddenly started playing really, really well. So there's a lot of players. Obviously, definitely know Walcott now, but obviously the Southampton winger as well. It's 3 a.m. here now. I can't remember his name. But the guy that plays for Southampton on the wing, he looked really good as well. So there's a lot of combinations for me, and I don't think it's the team so much that will cost England getting very far. I really do think that Rodriguez. Yeah, thank you, Bob. It's like I said, it's 3 a.m. here. It's the manager for me.
Roy Hodgson.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think he has the conviction or the experience at a high enough level for me to take this England team to a World Cup. I do think that as far as managers go and who was available, how I rave on about it, and I will continue to rave on about it to the end of time. I've always rated Gus Hiddink. I think Gus Hiddink, as far as a club level manager goes, is possibly not in the top 5 just because he doesn't have the transfer experience. But as far as tactics go, pre-game tactics, during the game tactics, and knowing what to use and how to use it against the team you're playing against, there's nobody better in the world for me. There is nobody better in the world. So for me, he's the perfect international manager because you don't buy players. All you're doing is choosing from a pool. And he was available. he was at Russia. So if he's at Russia, therefore per se, if England come in and ask him to take the England job, he takes the England job. And I think somebody like that with this England team, you would see England team semi-finals onwards with somebody like that. I really do.
Yeah, it's funny you bring up the Russia, because I was going to ask you, do you think it was a mistake to get rid of Fabio Capello?
Do I personally, with what we've got? Yes. I would rather have Fabio Capello than I would Roy Hodgson. But I'd rather have Gus Hiddink than both of them. So.
Now, just to continue, Redknapp was a better choice than Hodgson as well. Sir Bob saying in the chat. So.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Just going through the preview here that I found at FIFA. They talk about a strong midfield. Obviously, Steven Gerrard, Frank Lampard. They talk about the experience between those two guys. They talk about Jack Wilshere, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, case of mistaken identity last week, and Andros Townsend as well. And they talk about up front. You talk about Danny Welbeck, Daniel Sturridge, and Wayne Rooney, of course, being quote unquote England's greatest talent. So some of the other players that famously played for the Three Lions, Sir Bobby Charlton, Peter Shilton, and Gary Lineker. I mean, all famous names. England's best performance in the World Cup, of course, everyone well knows. It's the 1966 World Cup where they did win it. One of just a handful of teams to ever win a World Cup. So, of course, not as many as Italy. So there you go, Sir Bob.
It's all right. We're going to win the group now, Joe, and just knock you out. So
there you go. So, and
I can imagine the show after that. There'll be some. In fairness, there's bound to be some. I'm sure you need to be around for that day, Bob, because obviously Canada are very good at football. No, I'm only joking. But yeah, it will be quite an interesting show, Joe. Because I mean, hopefully, ideally, Joe. You finish second and we finish first, but obviously, I'd love to see Italy go through because, like I said, I know Joe that you'll be following England just purely because of the affiliation you have with me. But it'll be nice for us to go through, Joe. Maybe in an England-Italy final.
That wouldn't be so bad, I don't think. And then of course that'll end up in penalty kicks, and then that would mean Italy would win their 5th World Cup. So,
well, I think we're due one, surely.
I would want to go to penalties no matter what. So, obviously the big England-Italy matchup for you and I is June 14th. And I don't have, for some reason, I cannot find England's remaining schedule, but I would imagine. England is playing Uruguay on the 20th, and they're playing Costa Rica on the 24th, I believe is the way it's going to go. So, again, for me, I think Italy will certainly go through this group moving forward. I think England and Uruguay are really going to have a heck of a time. Also, keep in mind, Ben, this group is the only group that has 3 World Cup champions in it.
Yeah.
Think about that. How many teams have won the World Cup? You've got France, Brazil, Argentina, Uruguay, England, Italy, Spain, and I think that's the list.
That is a list, yeah.
Yeah, and of the 7 teams, 3 of them are in one group.
That's what I mean. It's absolutely outrageous, this group. I do. It's definitely 2 for 3, 2 from 3 even. And hopefully this England team, I think they've never necessarily lacked the quality. I do think it's just they've lacked the testicular fortitude, probably. Mm-hmm. It's probably the best way to describe it. So hopefully...
but drawn into this group, I think, is unfortunate for any of those 3 teams, England, Uruguay, or Italy.
Oh, of course. Of course. You could quite easily see any of these teams beating any of those teams on their day. You wouldn't want to bet on any of those 3 combinations of team playing against each other. So... in fairness, I hope for everything that's holy or whatever you believe in that when England play Italy, it's not like the last game we played, because I've never seen a more frustrating and boring game than Roy Hodgson attempting to hold on for a 0-0 for what seemed like eternity against Italy. So. As long as it doesn't end up like that, I don't really care.
Well, I think on the 16th, you and I are going to have one heck of a show on that Monday. I would say without a doubt. So it's going to be great to review that game. So just want to let you guys know that next week. Also, first of all, Ben, I didn't mention it, but I saw it on Twitter. Troy was listening on the ride home, so I wanted to say hello to Troy. And thanks again always for tuning in. Actually, Troy's been listening since our audio was cutting out, so he's been along the entire ride. So again, thanks for listening. Next week in our World Cup preview, we're going to move on. This finishes Group D. We're going to move on to Group E, when we're going to start with Ecuador and Honduras. I know I didn't put that in the plans, Ben. I totally forgot to give us next week's preview. So, but that'll close out our World Cup preview for this week. And
do you want to just before we go, Joe, quickly? Do you want to do a score prediction? Let's do a score prediction. England, Italy. You can go first.
1-1.
I was going to say 1-1 as well. So we'll and Joe doesn't even do draws. So
and I don't do draws. I don't do draws, but when it comes to Italy and the World Cup, it's always a draw. It's always going to be 0-0. It's always going to be 1-1, and that's the list. There's, and it makes me sick every time I see it. We go and watch the Italians play, and it's going to be a draw, and they're playing for 0-0, and it just drives me crazy. So I may have to take up smoking at that point. So.
You can smoke for me then. I must admit though, like I said, I'll touch wood, but if England go out of the World Cup, then I will be cheering on Italy, because at least somebody on this show should be happy if I'm not.
And likewise for me. So that's just how we do it here on Low Limit Football. But let's get to our last segment of the night, the segment we always save for last, because we tend to start the show a little early, and we want to make sure he can possibly tune in and listen. And he's been with us all night tonight, which is amazing. But it's the Sir Bob Man City Corner, Ben. Let's talk about something that happened in the news. I believe this was today. And Sir Bob will not be cheering, so we will be changing the name of this segment next week. We'll change it. We'll change it to
the Blackburn Corner. We're changing it to the Blackburn Corner.
There we go. We're changing it to the Blackburn Corner. Either that, or we'll go to the Vancouver Whitecaps Corner for Troy. So, but
this is true.
But we're going to talk about Bakary Sagna from France, who's Arsenal defender, wing back. Talk of him coming on to City with a 3-year contract. Ben, you sent me this contract. You sent me this article at the beginning of the show. So obviously I haven't had a chance to read through it, Ben. But tell me what you know about it.
As far as I know, he's out of contract in the summer, and Arsene Wenger's trying to get him to stay, but he's been linked in talks for a 3-year deal to go to Man City. Firstly, the thing that's strange about this for me is I don't think I would personally start Zabaleta over Sagna. So I don't think he would start, but having Sagna as backup to Zabaleta, especially if he's out of contract this year, it means it will come on the cheap, Joe. I mean, that depending when the contract actually runs out, you'd expect it to be at the end of the season. They might even get him on a free. I think it would be a really, really good acquisition. I mean, he's 31. He's got probably 3 years left in him. And to have that kind of depth, I mean, Man City have got a load of depth up front, a load of depth in midfield. Possibly they need to bring in another goalkeeper. We don't know. I don't really know that much about Pantalemon at the moment. But, they've got 3 centre-backs there as well. So, why not bring in an extra right-back, Joe? I mean, there's not loads in them. I mean, I do think Zabaleta is better, but I don't think by any means Sagna's that far behind. What do you think, Joe? It's got to be a good backup so they can turn it round and have different choices in, say, Champions League, Cup games, things like that.
I wouldn't want to break the bank with him. I wouldn't want to add him on at an extensive amount of money. Sir Bob brings up a healthy Micah Richards would be a better option. I tend to agree, especially with Sagna at 31 years old. Like you said, he's got about 3 years in him or so left.
Yeah.
But my question is, does Sagna want to sit the bench knowing he'd be playing behind Zabaleta? Zabaleta is certainly a better back. No doubt about it. Zabaleta is one of the better backs in the league. It's not even arguable. So he's going to go from starting for Arsenal to benching for Man City. Does he want to do that? Knowing that he's only got about 3 more years to make any money. It's interesting. It would add quite a bit of depth to the Man City lineup. It would allow Pellegrini to possibly flip-flop from time to time depending on what they're playing, because they're certainly going to be playing Champions League next year. They're going to be involved in all the cups. They're certainly going to challenge for the Premier League again. So they're going to have 70 or 80 matches to play over the course of the season, and I see them needing depth. I mean, most teams need depth when they're going to be playing that many matches. So he would be a valuable piece because he can certainly start without a doubt. I think the key
What
is
would you? Sorry, Joe, just to interrupt you. What would you be prepared to play weekly? Because I've found how much he's on at Arsenal. So what would you pay for him?
It looks like he's making 50,000 at Arsenal. You know, somewhere.
It says that City would be likely to offer substantially more. So substantially more. I mean, we would argue and say double. Maybe double and a bit. Say 120.
I think doubling is actually a little too much. I think 75 to 80. If he can be had for 75 to 80, I think he's worth it. I think going to 100, you might start scratching the surface of overpaying for him. And again, we talk about Man United and how they would have to overpay players to come because they don't have the Champions League to offer them. It's not going to be the case here with Sanya. You've got every trophy on the planet to offer him, and so I don't think you need to overpay for him, because not only is Man City going to be challenging for every trophy in the world next year, that's not going to be the exception. That's going to be the rule. Man City's going to be there every year. They have the money in the bank to go after big players year in and year out. They can challenge for these lofty trophies. So you don't have to offer Sanya the ability to play in Champions League or to play for the FA Cup or to play for the EPL every year in and year out. That's there. You don't. I think you can spend less to get him at that point, where his alternative may be Arsenal, who may not be playing in Champions League next year. Okay, so I think you have enough to offer him that you don't need to break the bank for what would amount to a backup wing back.
Yeah, apparently it would be a free transfer if he goes. So, obviously it was never really about that. But yeah, I agree. I mean, I do agree with Sir Bob. I do think that if Micah Richards gets healthy and gets back how he was, I would probably rather have Micah Richards, in fairness. I'm not sure how much Micah Richards is on or whether they want to ship him out, but usually ESPN don't just make up rumours, so that for me there's probably something in it. Whether Sanya wants to leave and Man City are just being linked to everybody because they're the team with the money and they're the team that are doing well, you don't know. But like I said, it's only rumours, and it's just we're just here to report it. Apparently Bob's saying Richard is back this week. I'd like to see a Micah Richards that comes back well, because if he comes back, then he can come back into the England scene as well. So for me, it'd be good to see him back, and we'll see how he goes forward. But yeah, I don't know, Joe. I mean, two parts of the argument really. Like you said, why would he go to Man City to sit on the bench? Because that is what he would do. And if Richards gets back to his best, then he's definitely third choice. And also, what do Arsenal do for a right back?
That's another great question. Is if Sanya goes, where do they go to get a right back?
Exactly.
So I think Arsenal will still. I think Arsenal is smart enough to realize that he still has a few years left in him as a starting wing back, and I think they throw enough money at him. Arsenal may double his salary. Arsenal may go to 100,000 or 120,000 a week because of the fact that they're not there, but they they're not in the Champions League, or they might not be in the Champions League, but they have the ability to offer him the extra money and offer him the starting position. And I think that's going to be. I think the starting position is going to be the linchpin in the negotiations. So I think Sanya will certainly have a decision to make, but I think in the end, I think he stays at Arsenal. I don't think City signs him. Yeah,
I agree with you. And obviously, whilst we're on the topic for Man City, we've got Aguero coming back as well, Joe. Now with Aguero and Silva, this is the full-fledged Man City team again. It's nice to have your best players back come this time of the year. Obviously Aguero and Silva are two best players for Man City this year. this is what they need, Joe, especially with this late Liverpool surge. And like I said, I think it's come at the right time, and I think it's going to be what pushes them over the line. But they've had some real trouble this year. But like I said, I truly believe that if this Manchester City team now, with the confidence and the togetherness that they have, at the beginning of the season, again, assuming we could reset this season, would be a lot further ahead than this, because they made a lot of mistakes, Joe, that I don't think you would see them make now.
I agree. And it hasn't helped that Aguero's been missing in action for a few weeks here. And I think that, again, we talked about it before, they probably tried to bring Aguero back a little too soon the first time. And whether that was Champions League, whether that was, any of the cups that they've been playing in, it's hard to determine, but I think he came back a little too soon. But you're right. I think, and to further the point, they're bringing him back this weekend. They're bringing both of them back this weekend. They'll both be fit and healthy and ready to play. And it gives them a week to play before that big match at Anfield. I think that it's a big key. I think it allows, a young guy like Aguero to get a match under his belt and really kind of get back into the swing of things. So I think it becomes very important. I think ideally they would have probably liked him to have maybe 2 or 3 matches, but one will have to do. So it becomes important moving forward to really, affect their title hopes.
Yep.
So, all right. So that's, what? Let's hit the closing music, Ben. All right. And,
okay.
And I'm gonna have to turn the music down a little bit. So, again, I want to thank in the chat for Sir Bob for joining us, sticking with us through the internet issues that we had this evening. I will try to figure out how to put both the Alfonso Duro interview and the rest of the show together. And that's going to be my challenge for the week before getting this up on the archives. Joining us next week, we will, for next week's show, we'll go into Ecuador and Honduras like we had mentioned earlier. We'll cover the leagues again, probably do a little more analysis getting close to the end of the season. We will go through the first results of Europa and Champions League from this week. And we will be having Jeff Douglas joining us again. Hopefully we don't have an internet fail again. We actually get his interview on as well. He's a big Tottenham fan and a friend of the show. So, Ben, any final thoughts?
No, I'd just like to say thanks to Bob and to Troy for listening. And to at one point we did have 2 other viewers as well. I'm not sure if it was Becca, but whoever else that was, thank you for listening. And we appreciate everyone that keeps the show going. And if you don't listen, then there's no point of us talking about it. And we're only going to get bigger and we're only going to get louder. So Thank you for listening.
And I also want a special thank you to Alfonso Duro from BeIN Sport for joining me yesterday morning to record that interview. And can't wait to have him back on again. So, and thanks to tweeting our show tonight to 6,000 followers. So, again, I'm Joe Usello.
And I'm Ben the Machine.
And you were listening to episode 23 of Low Limit Football. Thanks and good night.
Good night. Thanks for listening.